with a little chuckle as well. Yeah, so welcome back to second try now of commentary for round 4 for the Manchester Summer Chess Congress. We're covering commentary with for the Harry Lamb Memorial Open. And I'm joined by Grandmaster Peter Wells today. How are you this morning, Peter?
Yeah, it's good to be here, and it's even better that you can hear what I'm saying now.
I know, right there. So if anybody was with us for the first few minutes, they would have realised that I was on another computer, and for some reason the sound, everybody could hear Peter apart from me, which would make the commentary a bit weird, wouldn't it? Like I'd say something and then
tough,
maybe you reply, and then maybe a minute later I'd hear what you say.
There was a brief nervous moment where I thought you were going to try that,
John. Yeah, I thought, let's not do that. And I don't know, before we jump into the game, did you see Keith's round 1 draw versus Daniel Gomez?
I mean, I sort of saw it at some point early when he was completely lost, and then I saw the end game they got. And I sort of had some brief recollection that in all these kind of endings, I think White would rather not have pushed c6 already, right? It's quite easy with the pawn on c5.
The pawn's back, then it's okay.
Hard. Yeah. So, but I think wasn't it the move c6 that kind of forced Black to go into this, as it were? So.
Yeah, because I guess he's kind of threatening checkmate, isn't he? And
kind of threatening mate. Yeah.
So he has to go into it, but. I think it actually kind of alternates between being drawn and being won for White.
I can sort of believe that. Does it start off drawn when he sort of plays King D6 here? Is White still winning at this point?
King D6. Well, I'm only going to go off the table basis here, off live chess, and it says it's completely drawn here at this point.
Yeah, no, I had a feeling this already wasn't ideal. So. That's really, it's one of those extraordinary ones. I mean, I've seen something like this before. I ought to know about it, but I kind of don't. But I know that if you have the position and you still have the option, you don't play the move c6 because clearly it's very useful to have that square for your king rather than your pawn, right? So
yeah, I mean, I was a bit surprised, but actually in this position, it's actually won for White. Apparently, which is crazy. So apparently Rook G7 wins.
If you had the right co-commentator, they might be able to tell you why that wasn't.
No, not at all. I mean, I think the point is, like for example, here, I think Rook C3 is just an easy win, and the reason why it's an easy win is that I'm assuming that Black tries to take the pawn. Here you just go King B6, and the next move is actually King C6.
No, that's the square I want the king on, but I kind of thought that
it
would be harder if Black didn't try and take the pawn, but tried to stay on that diagonal. Is the point? I mean, if they played Bishop F2 just to stop.
Well, we can go King B5.
Oh, I see. Of course, no. Sorry, I can't stop you going to C6 anyway because your rook is just on the right square now.
Yeah.
Okay, so I do have to try and take the pawn, and then you could. Yes.
And then it's won. Then so like you get something like Bishop F4, King here takes, and then this is just won.
Yeah, that's right. This one is going to be a Zugzwang because there's no stalemates.
Right? Yeah, which is crazy. Okay. But I think he could have done this kind of idea of switching the rook to the C file, like all the way back here or something like this. So if the rook actually defends the pawn from this square, mind you, maybe the king blocks it. Maybe that's the point. It's quite interesting.
Yes, I think that is the point. I think having the pawn on C7 and getting the rook to the C file feels like
that's it. If the pawn's on C7,
yeah.
Okay, right. Well,
so the conclusion from that is that Keith is great in rook endings, but only if he also has a rook.
Well, I think he was also playing on increment as well. So his opponent
I was kind of being facetious.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the sort of thing. It doesn't matter if it's drawn. It's very tough to prove it sometimes.
Yeah.
As you say, when you're on increment, it's really difficult.
Well, the tournament situation, we've got Bogdan on 3 points and then a whole host of people on 2.5 playing here, down to Daniel Gomez. It's been really, to be honest, apart from Bogdan, who even his first round win was not clear, really. I mean, he could have been held to a half there. He's had some relatively comfortable victories after that, but people have been dropping half points all over the place. I mean, Adam Ashton even was kind of fortunate to win against the 1500 yesterday. And he'll say that himself, I'm sure. So it seems like there's a lot of players here that are maybe shall we say, underrated, or I don't really know how to.
Well, I've written about this just in the last couple of days. It just seems to me that you can hardly look at ratings with much. You can hardly rely on what you see when you look at ratings anymore. There are now so many underrated players, particularly after COVID, that it's an absolute minefield going to one of these tournaments with a half healthy rating and trying to emerge with it unscathed. I think all of these players on 2.5 points are going to be capable of putting in a very good showing.
Yeah.
I mean, one of them is Edward Jackson, who won 140 points at the British, something. So it's absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, he's a young player, isn't he? I think he's probably maybe.
He's 16. Young, but he's not as young. He's 17 or something. He's not the kind of age where you think, oh yeah, he might put on 140 points because he's a ridiculously underrated 10-year-old or something. He's been around, but he's somehow making a breakthrough, which is always good to watch.
I think that the thing is nowadays, though, is that maybe 20 years ago this wouldn't have happened, but if, say, for example, that 16-year-old all the way up to early 20s, when they've maybe got a bit more time on their hand if they're doing education at the same time, and they wanted to improve, then actually there's so much material out there for them to do so that they can improve quite quickly or get the knowledge that they need quite quickly to actually compete, which is quite interesting.
No, that's absolutely true. There's loads of stuff, but the motivation is probably the key thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. If you're motivated to do it, then you can do it. And if you've got the time, and if you're working, then it's maybe a bit harder.
But I also think that COVID gave a lot of people the time, and some of the people who worked then, we're still just seeing what they did kind of filtering through into their results, even a couple of years later, because it takes some time for some of it to show, and indeed to have enough opportunities to play.
Yeah,
somebody
which is
like him, I suspect, did quite a lot of work in lockdown. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but.
No. I mean, you're kind of right there. I mean, it's like when you get a new student and they're like, "Oh, I'm really bad at tactics" or something like that, and then they start tactics training and then expect to not lose to a tactic for the next few months. It unfortunately doesn't work like that. You're talking maybe 6 months as a minimum before actually something starts to change, which is quite a long lead-in time, isn't it? Really.
That's when you particularly need the motivation when it doesn't show quickly, right? That's when you need to be kind of ready for that fact.
Right. Well, we got the French here from Bogdan, and advanced French, which from Paul, which I don't know. The advanced seems to be quite popular now, Peter. I haven't got any stats to back that up, but I seem to be getting a lot more advances against my French than some of the other variations. Which
do you get this funny thing in the sort of Milner Barry style thing where they don't take back on d4? There seems to be an awful lot of things where white just sacks a pawn on d4 and plays with h4, h5.
Yeah,
I see very aggressive interpretations of the advance becoming quite popular.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like the main line now, almost, which is weird.
Well, exactly, it's slightly baffling to me, but obviously, I mean, it sort of has engine approval, doesn't it? As kind of yeah. But okay, but this one's this feels to me almost like, if you were teaching the advanced French and you said, okay, if black just makes very natural, quiet moves, what's going on then? Sort of developing the queen side and not really making any, not obviously trying to avoid what look like very critical theoretical lines. It's kind of interesting test case of what white space advantage means if nothing special happens.
It's amazing because does Bogdan kind of play that way kind of on purpose, doesn't he, I believe?
No, I think Bogdan usually is quite happy to have a lot of theory, but I mean, Bogdan's an incredibly strong player who, like me, has lost a lot of rating, and his biggest problem over the years seems to have been a willingness to make draws in theoretically equal positions against weaker players. And it kind of feels to me in this tournament like he's actually trying to address that a little bit. And maybe he's decided one of the ways is to be less theoretical with black, or maybe he's just, had a change of mindset and says, okay, even if the position's equal, I'm gonna play and show that I'm a strong player. But something's working here, isn't it? And this is, it's a perfectly reasonable setup for black, actually, and it scores okay, I think.
Yeah, I might copy it myself, to be honest. Just
bishop e3, I think, threatens to take on c5. I think that's the moment where black kind of has to take which obviously enables white to play knight c3. That's, I guess, the logic behind bishop e3. But it's interesting because we're going to get some imbalance. We're going to get as well as the space advantage, we're going to get the bishop pair for black against an open f file.
This pawn's been dragged in, which is quite interesting.
So when you play the French, have you had things like this? Have you had this structure?
So not this structure that often. I think I've had one game against Peter Malidi where I kind of got a structure that looked like this. Preparing for another opponent, I think there's some long variation that I looked at. I think it included in the line with a3 and b4, and then the bishop actually came to e3 rather than going to b2 when d4 was attacked.
Oh, I think I've seen those. Yeah.
So yeah, I've kind of looked at that, and you kind of feel like you're very cramped for space as black, but you're not actually getting checkmated, which is quite interesting. You know, I always feel like if I'm playing black here, that at some point all of white's pieces are just going to shove on down this side of the board, and
it would, in a sense, be a lot less interesting if you were getting checkmated.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it would be. Yeah. So it's not ideal, but I mean here it just seems like.
I think basically black has to make an f pawn move. Yeah, black's going to get mated if they don't move the f pawn, and so we're going to get probably some of the space advantage gets dissipated as here, and then black has the bishop pair. And now, okay, it's white's. What's white claiming in return for the bishop? I guess some squares and the fact that the d7 bishop still isn't a wonderful thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those where if you put me back in this position here, I kind of don't feel like, black is doing that well. But then just after this exchange, I'm like, oh, all of a sudden I'm very happy as black.
I think it's just, white doesn't really have a good option that holds the pawn on e5. So I think you have to sort of factor the fact that you're going to get this into your optimism with black early on. I wonder about bishop b1 and queen d3. It feels a little bit overly direct, given that black's going to go f6 or f5 anyway, f6 presumably anyway. I wonder whether white could have sort of gone something. I mean, when I see this position, what I want to improve first probably is, I quite like the idea of playing a3, but I want to play something like knight e2 to f4, I think, just to direct that one up the king side a bit.
Because then if f6 is played, you're just hanging on to this as well.
Well, I'm sort of keeping an eye on that, and I might have knight h5 on a sunny day sometime. I also wonder about queen e1 to g3 with similar ideas, and maybe h4. I mean, white's problem attacking-wise is that you can't stick anything on g5, right? So if you play h4, just maybe you can.
You can see that this game's ended.
Oh, is it? Everything I was saying about Bogdan having learned to play for a win is maybe out the window. Although, Paul Macklin, it should be said, is a strong and highly rated player. So maybe Bogdan has a different approach to this game. That's a bit of a shame.
So okay. I think a draw was offered here, and then they set the board up, I think.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think maybe a draw was offered even here, to be honest. It looks like... I don't think rook a8 was played.
If it's saying rook a8, that's probably the start of setting up the board.
Yeah, so... we're deprived there.
We're deprived in mid-flow.
Yeah,
but, it's actually a really interesting position because it's kind of interesting to me whether white's little bit of space and a few squares compensates fully for the bishop pair. I suspect it does, but I suspect objectively it's not much for white either. So
it kind of reminds me that these two knights kind of iron up these two squares. Do you remember Mickey's last game from the British?
Whose last game, sorry?
Mickey's last game against was
with
Pert against the British, and he
against
was
Jonah,
No, it wasn't Jonah. No, it was against Richard or Pert, was it? No, Nick Pert. I think it was against.
Pert, it wasn't the very last round. That was definitely Jonah because I noticed because he played Jonah in the last round of the English as well. So
sorry. It would have been a couple of rounds before that, then perhaps.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. No, my mistake. Yeah.
Oh, I know the game. Yeah. Was it Richard or was it Nick? It was a.
Well, it was this variation, wasn't it? It was the kind of like it started out like main line kind of stuff.
Right.
Bishop d3, c5, c3, and knight out, knight e2, and then takes.
Yeah.
Actually, no. Was it this actually? it was something that looked like this anyway, and to captures something like knight f3.
Yeah, what was interesting, he got a pure knight pair against bishop pair, didn't he?
Yeah, he ended up going bishop b5, didn't he? It might have been a slightly different move order, actually, thinking about it, but
yeah, but the structure was the
exactly structure was the same. Yeah,
right. It was very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's a shame that it's good to see the Bogdan play as well, and yeah, I think he has equalised here though as well. Personally,
yeah, I mean, Bogdan's knowledge of the opening is pretty impressive. His complaint is usually that he learns these lines, and so do weaker players, and then they make draws. But it is nonetheless, yeah, he has a tremendous knowledge, and when he's in full flow, you can understand why White might want to take the quiet way out here.
So how would you approach that then? Because obviously, when you're playing in a 5-round tournament, you got to try and win. And would you deliberately play almost like an inferior line in almost to try and get more winning chances, or?
Do you mean, sorry, if I was half a point behind Bogdan as Paul Matlin?
Oh. No.
I mean, I'm quite willing to accept a scenario where I'm half a point behind Bogdan. That could happen. I don't know. I mean, I think you take it. Honestly, I think you should take it day by day. I think if you feel in good form and you feel aggressive and optimistic, then you might even be happy to play something a bit risky. If you don't, you probably you play what you know to be best, and if it's a draw, it's a draw. I think I think a lot depends, actually, particularly as you get to my slightly more advanced stage of life. It depends an awful lot on how you're feeling on the day, how hard you push things.
Okay.
But I don't think Bogdan would be annoyed with me for saying that it's been a weakness of his in the past, that he's been a bit too quick to make a draw. I even had this conversation with him once, and he sort of clarified to check that I really meant that even in a dead equal position, you should just play on, like it was something slightly shocking to him. But of course, he does that sometimes, and I'm quite impressed by how he's playing here. It's been fairly efficient.
He's clearly capable of a lot more. But I mean, he also takes a.
Paul Matlin's very interesting because he's somebody I don't really remember from younger days, but he's not he's not so much younger than me that I shouldn't have kind of known him as a junior. And I think he made his FM title 5 years ago. So in other words, when he's like already around 50 or so. And that's a pretty rare thing.
It definitely is. I mean,
people who maintain or, God forbid, improve their level as they reach that kind of age. That's impressive.
It is very impressive, and I guess he's happy with a draw, but he'll be going into second on the point score with half a point. But I mean, you can't refuse a draw against Bogdan, can you? I guess we've known for his draws. I mean, Bogdan, I've seen in a lot of all play alls that he's paid to play in. I guess taking a lot of quick draws. I think there was one up in the northeast where it was him and there was Andrei Mektimenko, and I'm pretty sure that in pretty much all of the games they took quick draws apart from one, when somebody played on against them, and then they won both of them, and they finished on a +1 score. It's quite an amusing feat. Okay, well, we've got Keith's game on the board. Sean Gordon against Keith, and I guess this is. I didn't think. I thought Keith played a Caro.
Well, I think if you see is that there's a little bit of Caro injected on move 3. I think this kind of Caro modern hybrid he's played before. In fact, I think he played it once against me, so I ought to know. But this is interesting because d6, then it's much more of a proper Pitts. I think that's a reaction to White playing knight f3, which obviously cut out quite a few of the sharpest lines. So with some of the sharpest lines cut out, he might be then willing to play something more modern-like.
Yeah,
the important thing to know about Keith, is that he's not really very interested in the opening, is he? He's just trying to get through it to get a game. And some players love the opening, some players like to avoid it and minimize its significance, and Keith is clearly one of those.
It's amazing, isn't it? We have this game that we've got all these study materials on, and we've still got such massive variations in how people approach it and try and get good at it.
No, thank goodness you do. It would be a lot less interesting if you didn't. That's for sure.
So we mentioned I think yesterday even on stream that Lanyao wanted really F4 to be played against the Perk systems and to try and take a lot of. Yeah, she was.
I'm actually somebody who's often played F4, but is now moving a bit away from it. So that's
really
interesting. It's interesting to hear it has her endorsement. That's
kind of. So I guess this position here looks like it's probably been reached many times before. And then finally we get a little bit of action with c5.
I mean, if I was black, by the time I've seen a3 in conjunction with bishop e2, I would feel that I'm at the comfortable end of the pit spectrum, I think. But of course, it's still fine for white for all that.
Yeah, of course.
c5 already. Okay, that's interesting. So if we take that, what happens? He didn't take that, did he?
He didn't take, but I'm guessing your point is if we take back with the pawn, this pawn is a little loose and...
What, which pawn's a little loose? The c pawn?
Possibly, or...
Well, I'm just trying to play something like rook d1 and make it a little bit harder for black to develop, but I'm not very convinced because I don't think white's set up. Yeah. I was hoping you'd decide which one for me, Jonathan. I didn't. I'll just say rook d1 and see what he does.
See which one I pick up. Yeah. Well, I guess with f4 not being played.
Well, my other idea, to the extent that it is an idea, is that if you after rook d1 or something, if you play knight gf6, I might try and play e5 and e6 on the basis that you've already played bishop b7, and I might be able to follow up with knight g5 and have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
If you see what I don't know how much fun that is, but it looks worth a look.
And the black king's really stuck, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting because takes, I do have knight g5 hitting the knight, and I sort of think that will probably work out.
Yeah. It's pretty aggressive.
So,
I guess black doesn't have to jump in with knight f6 here, perhaps.
No, I think that doesn't. Black would probably
queen c7
play queen, and then I guess but then you have knight d5 with tempo. That's not really. Or I would probably play a4 first in order to get knight d5 with tempo with your pawn on b4, opening some white squares. That would be more.
That's a really key point now, is actually. So here, most people would just look at this move as the main line, but actually you're there just trying to insert this couple of pawn moves in just to get these kind of things going on.
The consequence, Jonathan, will probably be that b2 is very weak, but it seemed like a good idea.
Well, I mean, the thing is, though, if your opponent's kings are still in the center, and okay, castling queenside doesn't look particularly safe for black, then this is the kind of thing that you'd look at. I guess the other option is to take with the knight.
Yeah, and then I that would be annoying, but for the fact that I wanted to look at e5 then and see whether I could exploit the fact that just try and. And Keith's not a man who very much enjoys having a weak pawn on d6, and actually it may be more serious than that because I'm not sure what black's next move is to develop either.
Yeah, because he can't take f3 first.
I don't know. If I had that position, d takes c5 is the first move I would look at, just because black feels not okay. He's not underdeveloped exactly, but there's a very slight lead in development. And as white, I don't think I have a lot else going apart from a lead in development. So try and make that work.
Maybe Sean then just playing a bit safe with rook ad1 because immediately Keith then goes c6 d4.
Sicilian, it suddenly, which it now is, right? It's now an open Sicilian structurally. It feels like white's pieces are not particularly amazingly placed.
Yeah.
Whereas with the d file open, I think it was a bit more interesting.
Yeah, so possibly an opportunity there. And I mean, you just have to look at how long they were spent over that move. He actually only took a minute over rook d1 there.
Yeah, I think that's again, it was partly about sort of figuring out when the critical moments are and when to spend the time. As you know, I'm terrible at that. I spend the time most of the time, but there is, this feels to me like a moment to pause and think, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Whereas now the Sicilian structure looks very comfy for black, who obviously keeps the dark square bishops on the board.
Yeah, but now he does go for e5, so there's some intent there, which I like to see.
I think I think it's probably still the right idea, just not as well. Now it involves the exchange of queens, so maybe it's not the right idea because. Even objectively, perhaps not. And when you're playing, when I'm playing Keith, I certainly don't rush into exchange of queens unnecessarily.
Yeah, so we've got this whole forcing variation here where the queens got exchanged and Keith was like, opening success.
Well, I think it's an opening success from the point of view of certainly no damage has been done, and black has, there's a slightly imbalanced structure, and the part of the imbalance is a potential minority attack, which, as we know, is one of the things which does get Keith excited. I think he's going to be happy enough with this. Yeah.
Yeah. He just decides to castle.
That's an interesting maneuver, which why is it?
He's just trying to keep control.
Why White wants his bishop on a5? Is he just trying to control the a file? I guess. Oh, the d file. I mean, sorry.
I'm guessing he's just controlling d8, but also maybe keeping an eye on the a and b pawns, like that minority attack you were mentioning, perhaps. But it doesn't strike me as the
point of view. If you could stop knight e4, you could think about with a bishop on a5. You could think about the a4 idea again, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Perhaps, but okay. For the moment, Black would have takes and knight e4, and all his pieces would come alive. So some preparation needed for that. Oh, he's gone for knight e4 anyway. Okay.
Yeah, he went straight in and
more
exchanges. And these pawns on the queen side are looking, I guess, quite stable. I guess.
Yeah, it's if you're trying to be solid with White, it's useful to not have the knight on c3 be able to get the move c3 in it. I guess I guess it's extreme preventative measures against the minority attack. This bishop on a5, but you need to make something positive out of it as well, I guess. Okay, so is rook a1 and a4 a plan here? Is that looks not ridiculous to me to try
to win the game?
Yeah. Well, just to try to attack those pawns rather than constantly worry about them being a weapon.
Yeah, because I guess the point of this bishop on a5 is if a5 comes, then b4, then all these pawns could get swapped off. White loses 3, and Black would have 4 against 3 then. And in Keith's hands, he's going to play that on.
Yeah, that's right. a4 feels like the right idea to try and make some sense out of having your bishop on a5. But... Okay.
Yeah, I agree with this. Do you feel like there's some players, maybe if they're playing against a grandmaster or somebody just higher rated than them, sometimes they play differently? I'm not saying that that's what Sean's doing here. Maybe he would do this against anybody, but do you feel like sometimes people play differently against higher rated players than?
I think there's absolutely no doubt that they do, and it's quite hard not to sometimes. I mean, I think part of it might just be nervousness. I mean, I think when I was at my strongest time in my career, I was reasonably fearless playing against 2600, 2650s. Now that's kind of gone, and I'm pretty sure I play differently against them because that sort of element of confidence has gone. I mean, it was always a bit shaky, but now it's very shaky, and it makes a big difference how you play, I think. And I think also people often try to avoid theoretical openings against strong players. And I think particularly when they're white, playing main lines and, taking advantage of the fact that some main lines have a drawish tendency and the strong player may well take unjustified measures to avoid those draws is a much more sensible approach, although I don't really want to advertise.
Well, the thing is, Peter, it happened to me. I played in an all-play, it was a GM all-play all in Stafford, and I was like the local player, shall we say. And I was about 150 points or something, 100 points at least, compared to the next highest rated player. And then, people chose kind of different ways to play against me. Like somebody like Mark Hebden just went down his same old stuff, and a few other players did exactly the same. But some of them just went completely out of their way to get me out of theory immediately, just to have a game, so to speak. So there's two different kind of techniques that are on show there about how to play against a lower rated player. Which I thought was interesting.
No, absolutely. It's very interesting.
Bishop f3. It's an interesting.
That's a very interesting decision. I mean, I don't like it because, well, I've only recently had my breakfast and I'm looking at those F pawns and it's not a pretty sight. On the other hand, I kind of understand that bishop on d5 was a monster and that White's gone out of their way to try and use the d file, so that bishop on d5 is sort of something to get rid of at all costs.
Yeah.
But I think objectively, again, with that sort of thought in mind, it feels like it. I think if you had to criticize it, you'd call it a little bit impatient, as it is.
Yeah.
It's not obvious to me how else you evict that beautiful bishop on d5. So, and I'm pretty certain we're not in exchange sack territory, although you know, I'm wary of exchange sacks which open an extra file, because the key thing with exchange sacks is not to have too many open files. I mean, sort of momentarily you could wonder how black's going to make progress without ever being able to challenge the default, but I'm sure he can. So yeah, I don't like bishop f3, but I sort of understand what motivates it. But
maybe
I'm sure,
f4, king
I mean,
f2.
the problem with this position is that you know that Keith will be enjoying himself already.
Yeah,
it's nice to get positions where he's not.
This was the slower plan, though, wasn't it? f4, king f2.
Yeah, I was thinking about f4, king f2, and I wondered if bishop h6 with some e5. Oh no, you can't play e5, but bishop h6 anyway might be slightly
just hassling the rooks and
annoying.
Forcing g3.
But I think you're right. I think that's probably a better bet. I was thinking, you know, I think you're right. That would be the patient version of the plan.
Yeah. Okay, right. Let's just have a look at the next few moves.
You know, White's compensation for the weaknesses is really just a sort of holding plan on the queen side, and the fact that the rooks could get active. But wait, so can he? I mean, if he just very quickly tried to double on the 7th, using the fact that rook f8 can get met by bishop b4, would there have been any mileage in that? I guess not. So
rook
instead
d7
of king
here,
g2,
for example.
or even instead of king g2, but we could do it now as well, probably.
Yeah, I'm wondering what. I mean, these pieces look great, don't they? But if there's just a route 1 attack.
Well, yes. I mean, it's quite possible that something sober like rook c5 and rook f5 covers it, and then black is sort of active elsewhere. But I mean, black needs to show how he's making progress in all these things.
Suppose though you go down though, can you win the a6 pawn?
Well, that would be a thought. So I wanted to give a check on g5 first. I think just make the king go somewhere.
Okay. Because now I've got to do something about this.
Yeah, and then go rook f5. Because if you're on h1, I have the option. Okay, now I'm at least threatening to take on h2.
Yeah. And I guess you get that kind of race now.
I mean, I think when people have these sort of aesthetics in the structure on the king side, I get a bit biased against their positions. But let's see, maybe even h4. Not sure. Maybe h3 is harder to attack. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of. I don't know. Where's black going to actually make progress? I guess bishop c1 is a simple one. That gives me the possibility of. Well, I get the possibility of taking on f3 while actually still defending f7. So.
Yeah. So actually, this check on g5 actually is really quite nasty, isn't it, as well?
I think it's over not doing it for sure.
Yeah, so maybe. I mean, I was a bit surprised then that Keith's gone rook c4 and then bishop f4.
Yeah. Oh wait, has he actually done this, or is this?
Yeah, this is the position at the moment. This is the live position right now.
Okay.
Sean is still thinking with white what to do.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm a bit surprised by bishop f3, giving yourself those double pawns. I mean, Keith doesn't usually give away much in his face, does he, when he plays? I don't think, but I should imagine that internally, when he saw bishop f3 being played and he gets the chance to double some of these pawns like this, he'll be doing it with glee, really.
Well, yeah, no, indeed. I think it's a structure Keith will quite like anyway, but I don't know. I mean, I think on average, taking all cases, that people probably worry slightly about taking on double pawns than they should.
Yeah.
Like just in general, I feel a lot of, sort of people relatively new to the game who seem overly terrified by double pawns. So I always get a bit cautious about making that the main narrative. But doubled isolated pawns are an extra level of commitment, but I can sort of see it. I mean, White's position has generated a lot of extra activity by virtue of taking them on, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It has liberated the d file at a speed that f4 and king f2 couldn't have done. So I don't know. I've got a little bit of sympathy. I'm just interested in what else White might be considering here.
I think you're right about that kind of double pawns thing, but I think it just goes together with learning, though, doesn't it? So, it's like I'm pretty sure I've had a junior who says, "Oh, I've got double pawns," and then I say, "Yes, but you're a pawn up." So it doesn't matter, And they're like, "But I don't want double pawns." I'm just like, "Yes, but you're winning. You're a pawn up. This is a positive thing." And understanding that balance, and it's quite interesting though, because we see that throughout. There's different scenarios where that happens. Somebody says, "Oh, my pieces are really bad," but you're a piece up. Or there's always
exactly.
a balance.
That's the sort of. I've seen that one as well. Yes, I don't like my pieces very much. Yeah, but you got 2 more, so everything's fine.
Yeah, and then as you're new to chess, I guess, and as you're coming through it, people are trying. They're being told to do something, and then they do it, and then but at the expense of something else, which is more important. And I've seen that happen quite a lot. I was just a bit surprised here, actually, that maybe Sean just wanted to swap rooks off, I think, or something. But I'd be very inclined to take. Oh, and we've got 2 more moves in the game. Actually, he has gone for rook b7.
Okay.
And Keith
I was hoping he wasn't going to try and swap rooks off, because I think that would probably be wrong.
Yeah, well, Keith has gone very quickly rook c5. Yeah, that check on g5 is. I'd even be as inclined to play h4 as white here.
Oh, really? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, no, that's possibly true, because the king may be in its best spot anyway. Yeah, I don't think this is terrible for white, but I do think it's kind of something Keith will enjoy, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
But
okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a look at another game then and come back. I'm sure Sean and Keith are going to play quite slowly now, I should imagine, or maybe only a few moves at a time. We've got Edward Jackson, white against Adam Ashton, and this looks like how did we get here? So do you know Edward Jackson quite well, or?
No, I don't. I was very, very struck by his result at the British, and I don't know him very well. And I kind of thought, wow, because he made it's very difficult to make 140 rating points in an unimpressive way, but I thought he made it in a particularly impressive way at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is interesting opening choice from Adam Ashton.
I think I've seen Adam do this 97 Spanish before.
Yeah, I guess I've never seen this before.
Yeah, I'm trying to after night. So, what's the appeal of this for black? That's the question, I guess.
I guess he just wants a kind of a new position.
Yeah, you have an open A file, and your pawns, your double pawns. To go back to what I was saying about double pawns not being all bad, give you a little bit of potential initiative. One of the nice things about double pawns, you can push them without necessarily weakening the squares behind, because you have another one to cover it, and that might apply to some A4 at some moment here. That it's useful. You then have a B pawn still sort of covering behind. But okay, I'm thinking about this knight on G6, which is obviously quite a sort of pivotal part of this system. Is that a decent place for it or not? I think if white tries to push F5 too quickly, it will be reasonably easy to solidify the knight on E5. And if white attacks, you're not going to end up with a piece on the weak square, but you're going to end up, if white plays bishop F4 and takes a knight on E5, then you're going to get a D4 square instead. So there's nothing sort of very simple and quick what can do to exploit this. But nonetheless,
for me, I'd be trying to play G3, H4, H5, but obviously that's going to be met by H5 for black.
I'm pretty sure H4 will always be met by H5 here. Yeah. Whether then the G pawn's quite backward, isn't it? It may be that you only want to flick in H4 if you're actually going to get H5.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And black can go D6 next. So King E2, was that? So yeah. I guess that's saying he wants to trade bishops, right? He's going to B3. And I suppose part of the idea of bishop E3 is that if they are traded, then when black plays D6, you can potentially try and attack that. Although I think, all the stuff with weak in inverted commas D6 pawns in the King's Indian and stuff, that was all kind of.
I don't know. Is there any semblance in after bishop E3 that black can maybe retreat back here? And is e5 going to be the response to that though? If Adam doesn't want to swap dark square bishops there, but
honestly, I was wondering about e5 instead of king e2, just to try and get knight e4. That if you're going to do e5, it feels like maybe you do it now when you're trying to sort of emphasize your development.
How does he respond to that?
My guess is that he probably responds with d5 to actually stop knight e4 and say, okay, if you want knight e4, you have to change the structure.
Yeah.
And this is probably okay for black.
The tempo on the f4 pawn perhaps is...
Well, I mean, I guess white can castle, but...
You can actually play knight e4 anyway.
Well, that would be interesting if you can. So you want to go takes a knight d6 check?
Or castles kingside.
Okay. So let me take it just to see what you have in mind.
I mean, knight d6 check was my backup, but I thought castles kingside was even more.
I guess he could also take on f7 and then castle? Is that possible?
Yeah.
No, he can't do that. He's got g5, takes king g6, winning a piece. That would be... Okay, I mean, I can go g3, but that wasn't the plan.
Yeah, I know.
That wasn't the way I wanted to win back my piece. Okay, so... And here, I guess I could be super... No, I can't really be super greedy. Okay. No, if I can't be greedy here... Sounds all wrong, but if I can't be greedy, I'm losing interest.
I mean, knight e2 check.
I guess I can go knight e2 check, yeah.
And... Oh, are you castling next kingside if I go king h1?
Well, I might be, but you can still take on f7 and go knight d6, and I don't think... pinning, and I don't think rook takes f7, rook takes knight d6. I think works, doesn't it? I don't really. Yeah. I'm not crazy about black's position here. Actually,
yeah.
That this e5 and takes and knight e4 isn't a bad idea. But of course, black can just play very solid and go bishop e7 if he wants to, and maybe the structure isn't very exciting for. It might be one of those positions where now you'd rather have your pawn on f2 again.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah. So he doesn't have to go into it, which is a shame.
No, but you have to go into the sharp stuff.
This is chess, though, isn't it? This is like the hidden variations that you don't kind of show everybody about how exciting it could have been, because you have to calculate bishop takes f4 in this line, but actually it's probably not the best move. You just go bishop e7, and your entire plan is just like, oh, has that actually worked for me?
Yeah,
no.
You see, I think you have to calculate bishop f4, but that's one of my problems. Some people just don't. Some people just look at the sharp stuff and go, "That's too sharp." And I think
really?
Actually, in a way, sometimes that's more practical. But I like looking at the sharp stuff. But what can you do?
Okay, well, Adam's having a bit of a think here.
Yeah.
After king e2, so I mean, it is Adam castling kingside here most of the time, or is he trying to put his king somewhere else?
I don't know. I think if lots of pieces come off, there might be scenarios where you just go king e7 probably.
Okay.
But if there are pieces still on the board, he may well need to castle kingside. I mean, I'm not sure why. It looks to me like d6 is very much the natural move here, just to put paid to any more e5 ideas. And maybe, I don't know, does he want to meet bishop e3 with bishop g4 check, or is that just a random check and then you have to retreat again? Maybe you probably have to retreat again.
Well, you have to, because f5 is coming, isn't it?
Well, okay, but after bishop g4 check, I can't go to f2 because you could play knight takes f4 then. So that's not even true. I'm getting my pieces lost. You have king g3 after takes and c5 and king g3 winning a piece. There you go.
Yeah. Well,
what about that? C4. There's one for your collection of king forks, and there's c4 coming as well.
Hang on a minute. You've got c4 at the end.
You have, although you need to time it right, otherwise I'm going to take both your pieces.
I'll let you take one.
No, you don't. Okay, you can let me take one.
And then move that one back.
I'm going to take the horse. This variation is incredibly unlikely to occur.
Incredibly likely. But it's quite funny though, isn't it?
It is quite fun. That is the main thing it has going for it, is amusement value. If anyone's not amused by this, then just ignore it, because it has no other conceivable value. I'm going to go rook hd1. I'm not even sure. I think your best bet here might be just never to take that bishop and just keep it
really?
Forever, so I can't play a4 or something. I don't think it's especially exciting for white.
No, okay. I mean, it just goes to show, though, just how this position back here, which doesn't work.
I don't think there's any particular reason not to meet bishop g4 check with king d2. So
yeah. So here we can go king d2.
I just wonder. It just seems to me like d6 is very natural. Whatever comes next.
Okay,
So,
right. Well, let's have a look at. Have you heard of the player Rishi Vijay Kumar?
All I know
Scotland?
that he's pretty young, like maybe 12 or something, that kind of age.
Let's have a look.
And anyone who's 12 and on 2.5 points is sort of necessarily interesting. It's impressive to be on 2.5 points in this tournament.
I'll look up his exact age actually, and then we'll have a look at how he got here. So he was born in 2011, so 12 years old, but he's not playing in the Glorny Gilbert Cup. Playing in this instead, I'm guessing. And Mike's openings are great, aren't they?
This is Mike playing with a straight bat. This is Mike's theoretical repertoire, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Mike Surtees' openings are always interesting, and he's put a lot of thought into the basic principles behind them. That's for sure. But this looks quite well.
This starts to really get interesting now, Peter.
I mean, with Mike, it's always a question of, he's obviously pushing the boat out a bit, and the question is how far is he pushing it? And here it looks he's pushing it quite far at the point where knight h5 happens. Well, obviously what White does is very critical to hit the g6 pawn.
Yeah,
it looks very critical and honestly pretty nasty because this is the downside of queen a5, the fact that a knight move like knight h4 is even possible.
Yeah. Just to show that if the queen hadn't moved, then it would have been fine. But he goes knight d6.
Wow, so he just sacks the g pawn.
He just says, "Don't care. I do not care about my g6 pawn."
I suspect he does care and isn't very happy, actually. I think even, Mike Surtees has a sort of... I've played him several times and he's had some pretty bad openings, but they usually have some... They have some point and they often have hidden depths which make the task... And he's obviously a very good player, underlyingly a very good player as well. So I suspect he'd be quite bothered by what's happening here.
Okay. Well, he's got an open file against his opponent's king, but bishop e2.
Bishop e2 is interesting. I mean, I imagine that taking on f8 is also far from ridiculous. I mean, black can take on f4, but
something like this might happen.
In order to keep his rook on the file, he has to play something like king takes f8 at the end. And honestly, if White plays, I don't know, queen e2 and rook e1 or something, you feel like both, it's not just White's king that's on the end of an open file. I suspect that Black's king, the fact that it is, could matter more.
Yeah.
So I think this is, he's a pawn down. This position is, this is definitely one of Mike Surtees' openings gone wrong. This is not the par for the course. Bishop e2 is a very sort of conservative option, but it keeps the structure and it also looks reasonably nasty for Black. So meeting an attack on one piece with an attack on another, and the idea being if knight f4, then the knight can come back to that lovely square. It has sort of positional grounding.
Yeah, so if knight takes here, knight here, beautiful knight. No pawn's going to attack it. Yeah. And obviously the trick is, of course, that if rook takes knight, bishop takes knight, and queen takes, and the queen's just really active, king f7 must be played. And there's just some pressure here, isn't there? And that might even be lost at some point.
Well, yeah, I also wonder if knight e4 is possible immediately, just using
yeah. Pin across.
Because then you're threatening to take d6, you're also threatening to come to g3, attacking f5 again.
Yeah, that's really aggressive, isn't it? Very nice.
Something like this might be the reason that White chose to play. To be honest, I think knight takes f8 was a pretty good option as well. I think I would have gone knight f8, but okay, it's all...
Just makes it simpler, doesn't it?
In a way. I think it's more aggressive, actually. I think it's more clear that White's attacking in that line than in this one, but...
Well, knight g4 makes it, or keeps the complications going. And then the idea was that after bishop takes knight, he now does pawn takes bishop. Now knight f8.
Is this the game?
This is the game.
This looks like a bit of a better version of what we had before, although it may be that the sort of black king is equally vulnerable here. If white plays e takes f4 and uses the e file, it still seems to me like that king is. Honestly, white has additional ideas here, which he maybe didn't have so much before, like pushing d5 as well, just to open the d4 square for the queen. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot could go wrong for black here.
Yeah, Mike's opening's definitely gone wrong here. I mean, it's not just a pawn down, is it? That black king is just so open. I don't actually know how he's going to hang on. It looks like he could lose in the next few moves.
Yeah, I think this has gone. This is not what Mike wanted. And okay, if bishop e2 persuaded him to play knight g4, then it clearly had a lot of virtues as well. This is very unpleasant for Blake, actually.
Yeah. Oh well, that's a bit of a. It'll be very quick, actually. They started at 10 o'clock. They've been going for nearly 2 hours now, so maybe we joined at kind of like the right time as well. But okay, well, let's flick on down. We've got Russell James.
Is there a lag on the games? Is there a 15-minute lag or anything?
No. I've been told that they come through live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Oh, we've had another French, but it wasn't quite a French. In the normal sense, we had 2 knight f3 being played, and King's Indian.
Okay.
So can black take an e4 here?
Well, yeah. There's this line in the Caro-Kann with the same position as this, just with a pawn on c6 instead of e6, which has become a little bit popular recently.
Yeah, so that starts like this, doesn't it?
That's like this, I think. So it goes something like knight f d3 here. I think this is the one.
Yeah.
People have started playing this, and this ending is reckoned to be very fractionally better for white, maybe. At least, it's clearly not to everyone's taste. It's not even to every Caro-Kann player's taste. Because these days, Caro-Kann players are a bit more versatile than they used to be. So
I'm guessing with the pawn on e6 rather than c6, then that must be even slightly worse for black then, with the bishop being blocked in, or I don't
think that's an interesting question. I don't know. It may be that it may not be that clear which way. I mean, there may be. I imagine there are pluses and minuses, but I would probably, if I were black, I'd be even slightly less keen to go into this ending like this. I mean, I don't think it's a huge big deal. It's gonna. I'm not sure that the move order has massive advantages over knight bd2 or queen e2 or whatever, but it's It's just another thing, isn't it? The more varied ways of getting somewhere, the better in some ways. So now it transposes to
the main lines.
Yeah.
And black castles a little quickly there.
Myself, I like if white can get these kind of positions, I quite like the queen e2 lines where you still have the possibility of bishop f4 and stuff. But this one's perfectly effectual too. c4. That's one of the key ways to to show that there's a little bit more to white setup than just hacking on the king side. Yeah,
because now the play is a lot more central, isn't it?
So is e takes d5 there instead of knight takes out of the question? I can't remember what these are like, because in some ways it opens up the bishop and it keeps the pawn structure and.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit surprised he took with a knight, actually. Took with
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure what it is about black's pieces that would make that structure so problematic. There, d5 and c5 don't look. They'd be my main worry. They don't look especially unusually weak or anything. They look like the respectable end of the hanging pawn spectrum. So.
Yeah, definitely. It just opens up this diagonal for your bishop, but I mean, I'm a bit surprised though. You're looking at the time that we've got here, and I know that if I was playing with this French, then I always kind of just take a few seconds to, it feels like, I mean, is c4 is this just mainline theory or something that I know it's been played before, but
I'm not sure about the exact position, but it's certainly very much in line with things I've seen before. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but Daniel Gomez has not used a single second yet. He's playing his moves, and every 10 seconds he's making a move.
Well, then I assume it is mainline theory, but. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there's a reason you don't take on d5 with the pawn, but it looks like to me like I would look at that first. Because this is a slight... I mean, it's a lovely horse on d5, but it is a slight concession in terms of, the c5 pawn, but even more than that, giving white the e4, I think, which is pretty useful for making. But on the other hand, you look at the knight on d5 does cover a lot of things as well. So maybe it's
not as powerful with the pawn on g3 though, is it? And f2 covering these squares.
No, but it does stop white playing moves like bishop f4 or bishop e3, perhaps, which he might want to do otherwise. It's quite good in terms of what it prevents.
And I guess that's why a3 is played here, just kind of controls the knight.
Yeah.
In the future.
Yeah.
We do see that knight jumping into e4, which is...
Well, yeah, knight e4 is certainly one of the things white can boast about having here. And bishop g5, yeah, that's what would worry me for black, would be if I started having weaknesses on the dark squares as well. So that move, it tries to make the c5 pawn weaker, and it tries to make the d6 square weaker as well. That must be the right exchange if you can get it, I think.
I guess just simply doubling up on this c pawn is...
Yeah, sort of. Okay, knight d4, that's...
Oh, we just had a live move as well.
Big structure change.
So I'm guessing we're about to see pawn takes knight. And...
I'd be a bit surprised if we didn't. Yeah.
There we go. And Daniel started to use some time now as well, which is good. Hang on a minute, these clocks can't be right. He's not down to 13 minutes, surely. Hang on a minute, we've been playing for 2 hours. Whoa.
Is that really possible?
Yeah, if they started with an hour 50, it's been 2 hours and Black's only used 15 minutes on his clock.
I'm trying to remember. I played Russell James a couple of years ago. I can't remember what his time consumption was like, but of course it might have been affected by my time consumption.
Yes. I mean...
Can we just take a quick look to see whether knight takes d4 was the only way to do this for white? It's quite a... I guess it's quite a substantial knight, isn't it?
That's in the Sehi in the chat is saying that Russell always gets into time trouble on a regular basis. So I guess when you've got...
Forgivable. I don't understand people who do that.
And Peter's saying that for those watching, and a level of humour, seeing as he gets into time trouble quite frequently, even if it's a position that you should already know. But yeah, I guess when you got this matchup of somebody that plays relatively fast, that Daniel does, and Russell who plays relatively slowly, then you're going to get somebody in time trouble after 2 hours, or getting close towards it. So were you considering some different moves there, like bishop takes bishop first, or?
Well, I mean, I feel Black's pawn structure looks sort of... I mean, I sort of feel slightly more sympathetic to Black's position as a whole once this exchange takes place, because... Okay, the d4 pawn could still be weak, but the exchange of minor pieces seems to help Black a bit, I think. I was just wondering if there was any way of exploiting... But I can't see an obvious... I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this wasn't a position where Russell had used quite a lot of his time. I just wanted to pause because it felt like quite a big decision. Like, I don't know. I mean, one ambitious way to do it would be just to say, okay, your knight on d4, you can have that, and go kind of knight f2 to c4 in the knight fd2 to c4 in return or something, and just try and... I mean, I'm sort of struck by the fact that if Black ever takes on g5 after knight takes, I might be threatening mate on the long diagonal, and Black doesn't have a move that they want to make in return. But I'm not sure. It's not obvious to me how to proceed with white. I just have a feeling there should be... I mean, even just... Let's be less ambitious. Even just taking on e7 and then going rook c1, relying on the fact that Black can't take on b2. Maybe that runs into perhaps even bishop takes e4 and queen takes b2. Yeah, I mean, assuming that Black can't take on b4 because of b2 because of the tactic may be dangerous.
And previously we had this tactic, didn't we, with the bishop on b7, but doesn't exist anymore.
Having said that, we have knight takes d4 and rook e2 winning the exchange here, so I am thinking as I go along.
You are, and dual attack for those watching. Yeah. So it's a very complicated position.
It is. That's why I suspect that this was part of Russell's time consumption. I don't know.
Well, I can show you exactly. So here he was on 56 minutes, Russell was. And then Bishop G5 took him down to 19. So
yeah, okay. So that was like Bishop G5.
That was the big thing.
Oh, that was the big thing. That's interesting because for me that's a very natural strategic move, whereas the next knight takes D4 is a bigger decision. But
in fact, that's really bad time management there at that point. 56 minutes is plenty. I know he's still, at this point he would have been like 40, 50 minutes behind on the clock, but here he's now into time trouble, and we've got Queen H5 played. This is the live position. He's down to 13 minutes already.
Okay. I mean, that is one reason to take on D4 is to enable moves like Queen H5. That's interesting. What's the plan if Black even... I mean, I'm sort of trying to think how dangerous this is even in the best case scenario. So if I were to take on G5 and you play knight takes and I go H6, it's a scary follow-up.
And Bishop E4?
Yeah, that would be one possible scary follow-up. That would be the idea, I guess.
And I guess the threat there is what? Bishop H7 check, King H8, Knight takes F7. But I mean,
maybe, but that's two pieces for a rook. I just like that one is. That's really why I was trying to figure out whether something like that is a threat. I'm not so sure it is.
I think maybe he wants to take on E7 here and then go Knight F6 check, perhaps.
That's one reason I wondered if taking on G5 might not be so silly.
Yeah.
I imagine he does want something like that.
I mean, I think the knight can maybe come to F5 to guard things and give the piece back to save it, but just something that maybe might generate something. I'm actually a bit worried. Sorry?
Yeah, that may well generate something. I think that's the sort of thing he's after.
But I'd have preferred play like you were doing against this pawn that was on C5, and this pawn feels like it could beat us now if you're playing white, potentially.
Particularly in time trouble, right?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's flick through the other games and then come back round to the top and see what's going on. So we've got Vikas Sajanani against Adrian Lamberts. I couldn't have bought you a more interesting game.
Well, it's sort of, I was trying to figure out if I thought anyone is really better. I think white can probably play G3 and stabilize, right? Or even taking on D8 and G3. But I think I prefer just playing G3 and inviting black to activate our knight. Okay, yeah, it's not a thriller, but it's it's possible that if white can stabilize this position, then the slightly better structure can count a little bit.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's black's pieces are reasonably active. Okay, moving on.
We got Paul versus Manuel Dietica. So Manuel, I haven't had one of his games on before, so good to have new people on.
So white's just played Queen F4. White's a pawn up. What happened? Did black gave away the H6 pawn, presumably to try and...
I can go back. Let's have a look. So it was a London system, but... Oh, sorry, Jabava London. Oh, and then now it's a perk.
Exactly there. Yeah, I don't think I like H6 that much. I'm sure that there must be ways of making sure that Bishop H6 isn't such a worry.
Well, when you see this, I think that there's some people don't even play Bishop G7 here because...
Well, I think there's often quite a reasonably strong case for not playing Bishop G7 when, as long as, there are no threats to open up the center or something.
Yeah. So Bishop G7, H6 maybe... Well, Bishop G7 is playable, but H6 is definitely not playable. So we get your captures on C5
I'm not even sure that H6 is not playable, but it does create this dilemma that, you're not going to be able to castle. Yeah, here it doesn't look playable at all. This is not that wanted.
So he was forced to castle away from knight C7.
He was forced to castle. I suppose the claim would be that at least he's going to win some time back on the queen side because of knight B5. But yeah, objectively it can't be. Wait, okay. As white, I might have looked at e5 in some position where black can't take. So perhaps playing bishop takes g7 and then a quick e5 might be one way to do it, just to use the pin. Yeah.
And then even
if I have
e6,
knight
like you were
e4 for my
suggesting.
knight, my position makes a lot of sense to me. But
yeah, this is a much cleaner way of playing, isn't it? The g4 idea.
Well, I
is
don't
just...
know. It's what I'd look at first if I had the position.
I mean, for example, knight here loses to g4. The knight's trapped.
That is true.
Knight e8, and whoa. I mean,
once you've got e4 for your knight, you could even just play it with f4. But I mean, e6 might be tempting. Knight e4 is tempting. Knight e4 is quite tempting because it stops black having any queen a5 stuff as well, actually.
Okay, yeah, nice little.
That might be a nice. This does look very nice for white, I think.
Yeah, but instead went g4 and then just allowed this b4, and the white pieces are a bit huddled together, aren't they?
They are, but knight c1 defending a2 is a nice, clean way to defend sometimes as well. Of course, black can then try and play c4 and c3, but I guess that's what he has to do. So maybe c4 now is the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think considering the opening went so horribly wrong, I'd describe it as horribly wrong. But yeah, I think Manuel's got a great position here to go hell for leather. You know, bring the rooks across, c4, whichever advance you want. Just chuck it all at white's king.
Just an annoying tactical thought. I assume c4 can't be met by rook d5, but I'm not 100% sure.
Knight takes rook. You can't take on e5.
Yeah, queen takes e5.
Oh no, it's check on e5. It's check.
No, but I think maybe then you go f6, and then after queen e6, you can put the knight somewhere exciting. I don't know. f4 or e3 or even c3 check. Somewhere is going to cause some trouble. I think this is probably risky for white. Probably not c3 check. Maybe e3 just to cover the c4 pawn. I suspect this is white. It's unnecessarily complicated compared with what white could have had for sure. Okay, but just a thought.
Okay, so interesting what he's going to do here.
Yeah, after c4, I mean, I think black's position is better than it was expected to be out of the first few moves. You're absolutely right about that.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's got some perspective to attack as well now.
Well, he's thinking about what to do there now. So, you know, good middle game play and lots of attacking play left. And yeah, because I mean, if he's going to attack, because otherwise this probably checkmates him. Although maybe even not. Maybe he's got even more time than that. But I don't know what happened here between Andrew Patterson and Billy Fellows.
Okay.
So it looks like we had a bit of a non-starter.
He's one of our promising juniors, Billy.
But okay, well, we've got Samuel Parry, who I think is friends with Edward Jackson. I think he used to do some coaching with Sam. He's playing against Sarah Lanson, who we know very well. It's good to see Sarah playing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of still see her at tournaments. She's played in Harrogate the last couple of years when I've been there, and she's still playing a reasonable bit. But obviously, she's pretty busy with other stuff. It's slightly shaky for black, but
I'm actually interested to see how he got here, actually. And
yeah, let's do that.
I'm disappointed he's playing a London system, but
yes,
it's kind of not a London anymore. It's kind of like an exchange Slav, but the knight's on d2 rather than c3.
Yes, queen b6, maybe. I mean, whenever you get the Slav structure as black and you're playing for a win, you need to find a way to inject some life. But the knight is a happy bunny on b3. Yeah, it's not so clear to me that taking
definitely
like that helps black that much.
And so she takes the bishop pair. Sarah does with knight 6 f4, but then comes into a little bit of an attack here.
Well, I think it's quite interesting because it looks quite nasty, but knight b8 maybe reveals that it's not so much.
Yeah.
I mean, my first thought was to see whether you could sort of provide an example for Larry Christian's old "Take My Rooks" book. But One of my favourite book titles, but it does look very unlikely. Black White only has 3 minor pieces left to mate with. I don't think that's going to.
Yeah,
I don't
it's a
think
little bit too much.
E7 is a goer. So, and I suppose that if the bishop moves, Black's next move is B6. So it may be that Sarah has demonstrated this is a bit of an optical illusion.
Yeah, so obviously for those watching, this pin down to this rook is really problematic. And what Peter was joking about there was some tactics book where somebody takes all of the rooks and then somehow could there be a checkmate here? But I think you can very quickly. I mean, for example, the king's going to move to D8, and I can't even get a check.
It can always run C7, I think. But it was a great book title, though. Take My Rooks.
Yeah, Take My Rooks.
And yeah, no, that's not going to work, unfortunately. I mean, White can actually win a rook back, but that's not enough for 2 of them.
I guess maybe even Sam's best is just to retreat the knight and then take with the knight on C1. It kind of like doesn't do anything. He's got a weak pawn on D4 then.
Sarah's doing fine.
Yeah, definitely. And you're also saying moving the bishop back, kind of like the same thing happens. It has to move back, and then if they get a position like this, bishop pair, and the dark square bishop's got a lot of targets as well, hasn't it? Especially, she might even choose to go G6 here rather than E6.
Yeah. I don't think it's so terrible for White, but it's certainly not, it's not the initiative that it looks like when you first see it. I think White would do better to keep the knight on C5, even if Black sort of exchanges it off. I think better to keep the knight on C5 if possible. Just wondering if we played something like maybe takes and just King E2 or something.
Yeah. And just allow this?
I guess. It's a past D pawn, isn't it? Pawn and B4, I suppose. I don't think you want to open that up
not just yet. No, not just yet.
Play, but obviously it's a pawn break for the longer term. Bishop B7 might be fine. I mean, if you play F6, I at least have Rook HD1 and F5 as a plan to try and soften up. 7 is tougher because I don't have any means of softening up. I mean, I could still play F5 if I want to, takes and Rook, and I suspect I'm winning back D5 without too much trouble. But it's not very exciting for White, I don't think.
No, yeah, I think this is maybe the best that Sam can hope for, to be honest, in this situation.
It's a bit odd, though. I wonder, could he have done better? Sorry, could he have done better than Knight C5? It's such a natural move, I suppose. Is there any other way to play this position? Is Knight A5 a move, I wonder? Just to attack B7?
Because for those at home...
The knight is pinned against the mate possibility, which...
Because the bishop's pinning the bishop. Very nice. Knight A5. Are you just looking to create a backward pawn on C6?
I was actually looking to just very greedily take a pawn on B7.
Oh, just take on B7.
Nothing as sophisticated as that, Jonathan.
Yeah, wow.
Very simple chess. I wanted to take your pawn and claim to be a pawn ahead.
I've taken your pawn, I am a pawn up.
Exactly.
Are you actually threatening to take it in this situation?
I assume I am, because if your rook attacks my knight, I just can take your knight on C6.
C6. Okay, so it is actually quite scary then, actually, this position.
Well, maybe the simple A6 is okay, but it's... But no, I think I'm happy to create this weakness on C6. I think... Wait a moment. Sorry. We need to... Can I go back a sec? I think I was missing something. Maybe after knight A5, Black can break out with something like E5 and show that knight is vulnerable to Bishop B4 check.
Oh,
that might be the problem. It's actually still very interesting, even after a quiet move like A3, I think.
A3.
A3.
I mean,
well, the thing is, if you go e4, I can go
castle.
knight e5, and I still have the same mating idea. Or
Yeah.
castles, yeah, maybe castles. Yeah.
I mean, I guess
this is
maybe even here, maybe castle's here then, and just delay it.
No, I like knight a5 because I want to strike at this one moment where I can cause some. When I'm ahead in development, I just want to look for stuff. I think if you go e5, yeah, you're right. Castles probably rather than. And now I might benefit from an open file as well. Who knows?
Yeah. Wow, crazy opportunities, and maybe
It's
I think in this position,
interesting possibility. I think, but
yeah,
in the
I think
game,
he's probably
I'm less
regretting it
excited.
now.
Yeah, knight b8's a nice defensive move, which you could imagine missing.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, let's. So we've got Ethan Norris and Dylan Mize. Started out as an advanced Caro. Let's go in on here.
Quite. I mean, I think Black will probably feel they've achieved a reasonable amount.
Wow.
But it's still probably fairly in the balance. I mean, there's a weak pawn on either side. Black's reasonably active. The A pawn is being on A4, holding back white on the queen side is probably quite good news unless it suddenly drops off, particularly in time trouble. I don't know. It's hard to.
Yeah, I guess. But I mean, if I was playing Black here and I had like a knight on D5, queen on H5, I feel very happy with how this is.
No, the knight on D5 is certainly part of what Black's achieved. I think it looks nice, but white can use C. Sometimes things like this look nice and then go wrong. But I think Black's a little bit better, probably.
Yeah,
would be happy enough.
Ransong against Benjamin Ridge. Just flicking over to this one. Counts of equal material, actually.
Yeah, but some pressure for Black on the king side. Yeah. Queen g4 looks like
definitely
a strong move.
I guess just a simple threat, but this is also probably
I think knight f4 is probably the scariest threat.
Yeah.
Maybe. Although knight takes h4 is to be reckoned with as well. It's also useful that the queen pinning the d pawn stops any d5 type counterplay as well. So Black is clearly pushing a little bit.
Okay, right. Well, yeah, we'll just have a.
Could we see one or two? Do we have more games than that? Do we have?
No, we've got 11 games. Well, we've got 9 games now because Bogdan drew against Paul and Andrew Patterson versus Billy Fellows. Looks like Billy didn't turn up or something's happened there. Yeah. So we've only got 9 games to look at, but we'll take a break in about 10 minutes time.
How Keith's getting on.
So back to Keith here, and well, I mean, we saw it at this point here with Rook C5.
He played your H4 move, John.
He did, didn't he? To be honest, I think it was just necessary. Rook G5 check was just so horrible, and Keith did your defending on of F7 via F5 idea. Then Bishop B6 was played.
I would have thought White's best plan was still to do what we were looking at with. To try and Bishop b6 looked like White was trying to exchange the bishops. It looks like a man who's regretting doubling his f-pawn. So I think if you get this decision, you have to play it to try and make the rooks as active as possible and look like you don't care about the doubled f-pawn. For which rook, what you suggested with Rook d7 and maybe Rook a7 feels like a more obvious way to try and get some counterplay.
Yeah, so I think he was probably just really worried about this
Bishop
move.
c1 was the worry, wasn't it? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that is a legitimate worry. Yeah, I think the problem is that it's not just one pawn you're losing, but it weakens other pawns as well. Okay, so Bishop b6 may make sense.
Now the king starts coming. Please take my bishop.
Okay. Yep.
That makes some sense, though, to stop Bishop c1. You can still double on the second rank.
Yep.
But he now chooses to go Rook b6.
Okay, so he's still trying to attack the e6 pawn.
But Keith does not care and goes Rook c4.
I suspect if White takes on a6, then just Bishop takes e3 and Rook h4 already has some quite awkward threats. G5 sort of comes into play again. I guess that's
D4,
the idea.
but this is the.
This looks more sort of circumspect as a way to deal with that.
Yeah.
This is a little bit dangerous. I mean, white can stop rook G5, check with F4, but.
The white pawns look like they're very vulnerable right now.
They do a bit. Well, the black rooks are sort of. That rook on F5 is a great piece because it sort of helps the attack and the defense in a very efficient way.
Are you trying to toy up between E5 or G5 here?
Yeah, that's right. Well, I guess one thing might be that E5 allows rook D5, so probably G5. I think that's the right approach. But I mean, white can look at King G3 and stuff. It's not obvious to me how bad this is, but I suspect black would be happy enough. You can do it that way as well, can't you? Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, let's check.
That's probably a good move. Yeah, I like that.
Really nice.
Yeah, that's good. Okay,
yeah,
so
he stops
well
it. He plays rook D4.
Which, he's still threatening A6, so that makes a lot of sense to me. Now black actually has to decide which pieces to exchange.
Yeah, but if he takes on D4, is he recapturing with the pawn or the bishop? Oh, it's check when he recaptures the bishop. I missed that.
Yes. I'm not 100% sure that decides in favour of bishop D4, but it probably may well do. I'm also just trying to, rook D4 makes a lot of sense to me. I think white's handled this reasonably well. How are the clock times? Oh, white's also managed to handle his time reasonably well as well, actually.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing, though.
In his endings, Keith gets a lot of progress from people who are not making great decisions when the game's very simplified when they're short of time. But 34 minutes is a...
Yeah, I mean, Keith's played very, very fast at the start, hasn't he? Obviously started to slow down when it got to these kind of positions. But, I mean, he does tread that drawing line very close, doesn't he? And
well, yes, indeed.
Yeah, I mean, like his game yesterday afternoon against Toshiko Aurora, who he swapped off everything and had a rook and minor piece endgame almost immediately, and then nicked a pawn and managed to win it, and in a knight versus bishop scenario.
Right.
So yeah,
Toshiko's become very aggressive in her play over the years. Seems to me to like to attack, and I guess if you like to attack, having all your pieces exchanged off isn't always. The way you like things to go. So against her, it might not have been a bad strategy. Although, as you say, he does run the drawing line quite close.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how he's going to do it. I mean, I assume he has to take something. Can't just ignore this.
Well, one thing I think I don't think he would probably want to play A5 anyway. But I was trying to work out whether A5 can be met by rook takes B5, and I think it probably can. Oh, wait, no, B2 hangs in the key variation. No, that's not the way. So he would take on C4 and then, I think, be happy enough. So if A5, I think white would... Yeah, so if white takes on B5, black can simply take on B5. And after rook takes C4, I guess take on E3 and rook takes B2, check. You need to take first, of course. And check, and I guess this is, well... Whatever else, it's very Keith, isn't it?
It's a Keith position. I mean, I don't even think that this is. I mean, white's the one with the passed pawn, but I mean, I guess he's going to get tied down.
It's not that clear at all. But yeah.
Maybe A4 gets played next. Sorry, A4 gets played here. Crazy line. I mean, I don't think he needs to. I mean, I kind of expected him to maybe take here first.
Okay.
This is the problem, though, isn't it?
It's honestly not that clear to me whether white should take with the pawn or the bishop.
I guess if he does this way, unless E5 is played now, he is technically winning a pawn. So
yes,
I mean, obviously the H pawn is doomed, so. It's maybe not as.
Yeah, maybe e5, and then if bishop e3, he can go rook f6 if he wants to. I haven't had time to think about this king and pawn ending. Of course, it might just be very bad for somebody. It's very difficult to assess king and pawn endings instantly. I think it's like one of the hardest things that you need to do in chess sometimes.
Well, I think the issue is that black can create a pass pawn whenever he wants by playing h5 and then g5 at the opportune moment.
Yeah, that's probably a big problem. Actually, the king is very good on f6 as well. So
yeah, so this would be good for black.
And by the way, I think the other problem is that if he plays bishop c5 to try and meet rook f6 with bishop f8 check, which would be a nasty detail, the move e4 is a big problem. Oh no, there's bishop d4 check and takes. So it's not a big problem. So in that case, bishop c5 might be a good move there, stopping rook f6.
So this is not possible due to this nasty check.
Yeah.
Nice distracting the king away. All these mini tactics that happen in the games. This is why you study them. I mean, I guess if he takes on a6, he can claim on the pawn up, and it's going to take Keith some time to win the h4 pawn, and then come back around, and maybe the b5 pawn drops off in that time. Yes, so maybe even
I can play rook h5 quickly, but it's going to be an interesting race anyway. Because I mean, actually, these double pawns come into their own when it comes to holding back your opponent's pawns, right? When it's races against part of pawns, that's one of the many virtues that double pawns can have. They can be quite good at stopping your opponent's pawn majority coming forward. So yeah, it's really not that clear to me.
Well, he's taken. Has he taken?
He's taken on d4, yeah?
He's taken on d4. He's taken back with the pawn.
Oh, has he? Okay, I'm not so sure if that was the right decision.
Because I thought now that just a5 now and push this pawn to a4 if needed.
Yeah.
But maybe if a5, then he's just going to take on f4. Oh, no, he's not going to do that. Surely not.
Well, he could. At least very interesting imbalance, actually. It might be perfectly okay for white to play bishop takes f4 and rook takes b5. Even if he loses d4 and h4, if he wins b5 and a5, those queenside pawns might be pretty dangerous, right?
Yeah, definitely. So does he take on e3 first?
Yeah, although that does tidy the structure quite nicely for white. But he could do that. Take on e3 and play a idea.
I mean, the question comes in some lines: is he trying to draw the game, or?
My strong hunch is that Keith's still trying to win the game here.
Oh yes, definitely.
That would be. I mean, you sometimes see Keith defending in a way that works very hard to make sure he's keeping winning chances as well. I mean, I've seen him in some of these endings. There have been quite a few sort of full point swings in his favour as well. I've noticed that particularly in tournaments where he's my main rival, and I'm trying to see if he's about the full point. And sometimes you do see these full point swings, but I don't think White. I'd be surprised if White's really better here. It just feels like White has enough resources to cause Black quite a lot of trouble. I mean, even if Black kept the bishops on the board and played sort of bishop back and a rook on d5, it's going to be a lot of hard work for White to make progress, perhaps. No, I don't know. It's not obvious to me that Keith is better anymore.
Oh, interesting.
If he ever was.
Okay, Peter. Well, I think maybe probably time just for a 10-minute break, just as they approach the time control.
That would be...
and then we can nip to the loo.
Good.
Yeah, get another coffee and check on the England women's football score as well. And
that's true. Yes. Does anyone know anyone in?
I think last I saw it, Spain was 1-0 up, but
really, oh gosh, okay, that's not good.
It's still 1-0. But yeah, no, okay. Well, see you in 10 minutes, and
okay,
we'll come back then.
Everyone.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, see you soon.
Welcome back, Peter.
Hi, well, be back.
Yeah, I mean, Spain were 1-0 up and just had a penalty saved, by the looks of things.
Yeah, that's what I was told by my youngest daughter who was watching.
Wow, we've got quite...
We saw a reasonably good chance as well, but a great save from the Spanish goalkeeper as well. So hopefully they can manage something.
We saw it around here, didn't we? After pawn takes, and then Keith opted for bishop c7.
Oh, okay, I mentioned that, but it didn't occur to me that he could then use the bishop to attack the h pawn so directly.
Yeah, so white structure is still better. Sorry, black structure is still better than white's. I guess he's claiming that this is his winning pawn.
Yes, and rook c5.
And goes to bishop e7.
Ah, that's the idea. Black doesn't have to take. Black can force white, or try to force white to take. This definitely feels like just Keith compared with what we saw. I wonder if white could have done more than this. But okay, we can also see whether...
How winning actually is this, though, for black?
Well, the first thing to say is I think compared with what we had before, it's sort of, to my mind, it's clarified that it's black who's the one we're talking about being better now, rather than, before it wasn't 100% clear to me. That I think without the rooks, it's probably clearer that it's black who has the advantage.
Yeah, because the problem is...
How do you get white's queenside pawns moving? That's the...
Well, yeah, because I wanted to go here, then b3, then a4, but as soon as I go bishop c1, you go bishop f6, right?
Exactly. I think that's exactly the problem, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't... I just can't get the pawns moving. If the bishop can't move, then you're just kind of paralyzed. And I think actually black's king probably takes this route, actually. Something along these lines, while this pawn will hold up something on this side of the board.
A weird thought. I wonder whether white could have played rook e5 here.
Here?
After bishop e7, with the idea that if black goes bishop d6, then you take, and then you go bishop c1 when they can't put the bishop on the diagonal.
Oh, I see. I mean, I still think you're a little slow.
But I think this idea only, it's still very slow, yeah. It only really occurs to me as
bishop d2, though.
Well, yeah.
Although the interesting thing is, I think you actually might just lose to a4.
Well, I did wonder, but I'd be surprised. Yes, it might actually be quite dangerous.
So I guess e5 to play f4, but I guess I go here now.
Yeah, no, this...
And white wins. That pawn queens. Or wins the bishop. I guess here maybe...
In rook e5, I think you need... Yeah, it's not very obvious that that's going to be the issue. Bishop f6, well then you... Ah, so you can't go back to... Oh, can you go back to c5? Can you go to c5 now?
So you're worried about taking on b2, right?
Well, I'm not, because I go c6, I think, and I win immediately. Bishop e5, bishop
not
d4.
Worried about it.
Bishop d4 just wins, yeah. Bishop d4, just queen.
Oh, bishop d4. Okay, right, yeah, okay.
Just a little deflection, yeah. It's sort
of very nice. Get the pawn to c7.
Or very nice, or very nasty, depending which side you're on. Yeah.
So I guess you can go rook c5 again. This is played.
Black could just play rook d5 here, probably. Maybe rook d5 just keeps, or just h5 or something. It's not clear what white does next, perhaps in this position. Although probably b3 a4 still.
b3 a4, yeah, it's got to be the plan, isn't it?
Good plan, yeah. Might have been tougher than what he did, I think.
Well, we're still in this position with bishop e7, so...
Oh, are we? Ah, okay. So maybe...
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought he'd already taken.
No.
I think it could be quite a smart choice to try rook e5 here.
Does he have to challenge this rook on the 5th rank? Is that... Or is it just a slow death if he doesn't?
Sorry, Keith?
Yeah, so no, Sean Gordon is white. Can he, I don't know... Did he have to bring this rook even here? Or is it just he's got no other plan? So maybe sort of like b3 here,
Back then, yeah. No, that's a good question. I've no idea if he had to do that. I don't think he had to do that.
Because
I can
he's
see
not
why
taken, but
quite natural.
yeah, because if you can't keep the rook on this file or whatever it might be, so here bishop f6, rook back, maybe rook d5, or maybe even just leave it and just play h5 or something. But
okay, but still, I'm going b3 and a4 and seeing what I can.
Yeah, it's quite quick actually. b3 and a4, isn't it? It's not slow.
It sort of is. I was wondering, just as I was thinking how quick it was, whether after bishop e7, rook takes f5, g takes, presumably. If white goes a4, can we immediately takes and put the bishop on b4? If you get the bishop on b4, it's not quite so quick. But you still have the idea of putting a bishop on c7 or something and speed.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe you could put the bishop on a5 and slow it down.
So which line are we looking at here?
Something like, well, you said maybe after bishop f6, rook c5, going h5, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, going h5 or something. Then I'd go b3, and then probably bishop e7 again. Now I have to take...
Because of a3.
Yeah, and then a4, and you try and put your bishop on b4 and a5. That seems to be the one scenario where the a-pawn isn't so quick.
But this...
Yeah, this doesn't look so clear either.
Because white's king is going to be threatening to come into h4 that you're not going to be able to...
White could also look at d5 and bishop b6 as an idea. I don't know. It may be that the d pawn and the h pawn both running might be too much, but it might not be.
Wow.
That need analysis. Because you don't have an immediate d4 because I can take it, so it's not clear that this is not going to be interesting.
Yeah, that could be. There's some very complicated endgames here, isn't there? We've actually got some moves on the board. Actually, the move that's been played is actually rook c7.
Oh, really? Okay. That suggests that white slightly regretted rook c5, but I'm not. I think rook e5 was interesting.
Yeah. Although, what are we on about? Rook e5. Can we do rook takes rook on e5 here?
You can.
Or is that nonsense?
It's not nonsense at all. I thought it improved matters for white because we can then follow with bishop c1 and b3 again. But it's not. Yeah, I mean, that might be a reason that put white off it.
Okay, well, rook c7, okay, it's a little bit of an admission of maybe going in the wrong direction, but it's still a lot of work for Keith to win this.
I like rook c7, but we'll see. It's not. I mean, if I saw this position immediately, it wouldn't be obvious to me that white wants to trade rooks. But having gone rook c5 and opened up that rook e5 possibility, I think might have been worth exploring. But anyway, it might be a moment to move on from this game because it feels like
I think so for sure.
Been more settled for a while.
We haven't got many extra moves, but that king on e2 that you don't like. Where do we last see this? We saw this at king e2 here on move 12. And then d5 was played.
Oh, sorry, that's why he wasn't going d6 quickly, because d5 is an option. Yeah, kind of showing that king e2 is probably...
So Edward felt forced to block bishop g4 check coming.
This is very interesting, because the downside of playing d5 is obviously that suddenly the knight can't get so easily defended on e5 if you... with the d pawn, for example, if white plays f5. So that's why he's gone knight e7, I think. Oh, wow. So d4 is met with just bishop f2, I think.
Oh,
that's clever.
Clever little retreats. A retreat to attack the knight. Knight b1.
So white
c5.
White problem here is the bishop on b3, isn't it? Other aspects are reasonably healthy now, but
Yeah, so this bishop is threatening to be trapped in. So he goes a4.
A4 is a nice move because I think he's intending to...
Opens up a pin on the a
I
file,
wonder if
doesn't
he
it?
was intending to meet c4 with a takes
AB.
b5 and b6.
And then b6, yeah, nice, yeah.
But I'm not sure, actually. That might be too much.
We'll show that, you know, so if c4, then AB.
Yeah, it's kind of
b6.
But Black may have something to say with beats kicking off with b takes c2, of course.
Yeah, I guess knight d2 has to get played.
Well, I guess that is true, yes.
Crazy position, but I mean, winning the piece back at least. But he didn't go for that.
Yeah, and I think the hope is that d4 is then quite weak and
yeah.
drop. He's played bishop b7, which is d7, sorry, which is more so.
Yeah, and it does open up the a file, but it allows this check on b5, and strikes me that Black's pieces have come further forward in this kind of little mini skirmish that's happened.
It's true.
It's like Black's next moves castle kingside, and
I think the important thing for Black is to avoid going c4 too quickly when it's hit by knight a3. That's probably the main thing to avoid. Because it looks very natural to want to keep pushing those guys. Oh, I suppose there's some times bishop takes d4 will be a move as well.
Yeah.
So king, where to put the king? I mean, it feels natural to put it on f3, but then when Black goes bishop c6, there's always issues with the e-pawn being very weak and with knight takes f5 being a threat, I suppose.
d2?
King d2 is really ugly because you want to move that knight, don't you?
Yeah.
Maybe the knight's going to a3 anyway. Maybe king
Wait,
d2
he's played king d2.
Oh, has he? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's some sort of like thing going on here though as well, that not quite working, I don't think, but castles first, and then that works.
For the moment, c4's still met with knight a3. Yeah? Probably.
Well, it can't because of c3 check.
If I take twice, I'm still hitting the bishop on a b5.
Oh, of course, the rook on a1 is guarded now, isn't
Defended it? Defended now, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I think Adam just needs to castle kingside here, to be honest,
and put the bishop on c6, and then if White goes knight a3, Black has the possibility to play b5, and then I think White's pieces are kind of a bit lacking squares.
Yeah. It's amazing how quickly.
C6 is a good. I mean, the knight is slightly not the happiest because the bishop probably belongs on c6, one of those positions where two pieces want one good square, you know.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the knight could come to e5, perhaps, or.
Well, I don't know if it has time. If I'm going knight a3 quickly, I think you then going to bishop c6, right?
Okay, right, yeah, of course.
So I think White's aim is to try and prove that Black has two pieces needing one square. And then, I can vaguely, if you go bishop c6, I can try and look at moves like bishop h4 to hit the knight immediately and maybe bring my knight to c4. I could see scenarios where White's pieces coordinate, but I also suspect that Black, if Adam definitely can avoid that.
Yeah, I mean, I think bishop h4 gets met by rook e8 and.
So castles and knight a3, bishop c6 has happened now. So
yeah, this is live now. This is the live position. Yeah,
this is live now. So I think we're coming close to the end of the sort of tactical sequences, and now White has to show that these pieces are more promisingly placed than they look.
I think the problem as well is just b5.
Well, with that in mind, I was just wondering if bishop c4 is a move here, just to stop b5 and to maybe try to play knight b5.
Okay, and making use of the fact that after bishop takes e4, rook e1 is just going to win a piece.
I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure you can't take on e4, so then bishop c4 feels like it comes into consideration. I think if White just sort of casually goes rook e1 or something, then b5 is a serious issue. One of those minor pieces needs to be improved to deal with it, probably.
Yeah.
c4. I mean, knight c4, b5, knight somewhere, even if the knight goes to an exciting somewhere, I think c4 is still a good move.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure there is a very exciting somewhere. Bishop c4 might be close to being necessary here.
Yeah, I think you've got to stop
Although
b5.
I do think, like, yeah, I think it might be close to necessary.
I mean, I think maybe bishop c4. How about bishop b8?
That's too clever for me, Jonathan. That's.
I mean, maybe it might force g3 as a response, but then you can maybe take on f. Oh no.
I was very much hoping it didn't force g3. I was hoping to still try and go knight b5 and activate my.
Of course, I can't swap rooks and take on h2 because you play g3.
Well, I certainly try to. I'm not 100% sure that works, but I think it's certainly something Black would need to analyse carefully before doing.
Yeah, I'd probably check on f4 to be honest, and see what the state of play was at that point.
I might be relieved that I can defend the e pawn properly rather than just tactically after that and go king d3.
In fact, I think if I check you on f4, can I then maybe take on e4 afterwards, or are you playing king d3?
Well, no, I want to go king d3 to make sure you can't.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you check on f4 and I don't go to e4. Oh, I'll tell you what might be interesting. After bishop, so yeah, let's put these on the board. Bishop c4, bishop b8, knight b5 may well open the possibility of you playing something like taking on a1. By the way, I'm not 100% sure you need to take on a1, but let's just assume and then bishop takes e4 now, with the idea that rook e1 can be met by bishop d5, perhaps.
Okay, so the bishop on c4 is loose.
Yeah.
I can take on e7 and b7.
That's what I assumed you were going to do. And I was hoping to go something like rook e8 at the end and hope that my pieces are better than your pieces. Or even bishop f4 check and rook. I don't know. It's not that clear to me, but it's certainly, there's also ideas of just.
I mean, f6 is also an idea.
b5 and taking on g2 at the end. I mean, I sort of try to be greedy with black, I think.
Yeah, it looks like it. I mean, he's not gone for bishop c4, which is a surprise. I mean, he's not defended e4, but he's played knight c4.
I think that's a mistake. I mean, I assumed that was a mistake because of b5 and c4 now, but there may be some scenario where that's not so clear.
So b5 looks like it's crying out to be played.
b5 is crying out to be played.
Oh, it gets played immediately.
The crying didn't last too long.
No, why have I not got
it may just be that knight c4 wasn't the best way to go.
Yeah, knight c4 looks. c4 happens here. That light square bishop's going to be stuck in, and black's bishop's very active.
I would be quite worried as white here, I must say.
Yeah. Bishop c4 was necessary.
Felt like it to me. I mean, there were no, now that the rook on a8 is defended, there were no kind of tricks. Bishop takes d4s at the end and that sort of thing. So I just think black's got a lovely position now. Adams.
Yeah. Adams taking control here.
Sorry, one last thought that I guess at some, maybe after knight e5, c4, white has to look at some bishop h4 or something. I think he needs to inject some tactics into this.
Yeah.
But I don't really believe. Oh, can we even go f6 now? Well, even
I'm
f6 is legal.
If f6 is legal, then.
Yeah, no, if f6 is legal. No, I think that white probably missed the moment with knight c4, unfortunately for him.
Well, okay, b5. Adam's taking control. Let's have a look at Rishi versus Mike Surtees. That was hotting up a while ago.
Oh, it was. Well,
it was. We had this
Mike
position
Surtees
on the board.
anyway.
And he took with a king on f8.
Yeah.
And then just decided
to this
d5.
Is the d5 move that worried me, because just the threat of queen d4 is big, isn't it? It's not.
Yeah, you called it.
Be messed with. And queen h7 is a big threat there, which is why g7 has to happen.
And then just simply
the only
doubling
real question here is, can white find a good route in for the queen? If he can, Mike Surtees is in big trouble, I think. So queen e3.
He went queen g3.
Threatening f5. Threatening f5. So looks.
Queen here.
And threatening queen h4 probably as well. Well, then rook e8 is maybe.
Okay, so here you're sorry. This way and this way, yeah?
Yeah, he's got two different ways in, which okay, I mean it's not like Mike can't try to defend, but
It's just too many weaknesses with such an exposed king. It just looks hopeless almost.
okay, so can he try to go rook g6 just to try and cover h6 and d6, which are the two kind of targets, aren't they? Then I guess the simplest is just to try and look at what the move has uncovered, which is e7, and try and invade there with rook e1, probably.
Yeah.
It's very nice for white that the rook on e2 is, again, doing this sort of defensive thing as well as the attacking thing, so it's hard to see how black even generates
this,
any. Yeah, it's handy mix of roles. Maybe rook f6 here just to try and attack f4 in return. But I don't. Knight e4 probably strong.
Knight e4, rook e7 maybe straight away.
Yeah, rook e7. Yeah, that's not really
could be anything.
Rook e7, you could try rook e8, I suppose, but none of it fills me with optimism.
No, it's not looking good, is it, for Mike?
But it's very well handled by Rishi, I think.
So far, yeah, he's been controlled, hasn't it? I think.
Yeah, I like the control. I like the control element of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Russell,
a very good move to flick it. Well, a very useful move to flick in as well. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah. Russell was in time trouble, wasn't he, in this game against Daniel Gomez?
Which we're told in the chat is no unusual occurrence.
Yeah. So Russell's down to 6.5 minutes, and Daniel's got 40 minutes left. It's still equal material. There's a knight on d6. Do you want to see how we got here? Because we...
Please, yeah. Because we kind of...
So we took.
Well, I think I said that bishop takes g5 didn't look ridiculous, but we were talking about bishop e4, weren't we?
Yeah, I think it was more hopeful, though, bishop e4 than anything.
Yeah, it was. I wasn't convinced it really threatened anything, although it did. Obviously, there's another way to meet the threat to the knight, but he's popped into d6, which makes some sense as well. E4, okay. Queen f3. So, wait, sorry, after queen f3, let's... What's his idea? I assume he's not threatening to take on f7 because that just leaves his knight pinned.
I think he just maybe wants to put his queen on d3.
Yeah, that's more plausible.
Maybe swap the knights and get the rooks to attack the d4 pawn as well, perhaps. Try and target that as a weakness.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
But f6 was played, which is going to open up the game a lot. Increases a new weakness on e6. Might be a mistake.
One of the dangers you can fall into as black in something like this is wanting to sharpen the game to take advantage of your opponent's time trouble. I think that can be one of the... I don't get to play against time trouble that often, but when I do, I'm sort of quite conscious of trying not to play against it too directly most of the time.
Well, I think he has gone for quite a tactical line here, Peter. He's gone for queen g4 and then he's gone for taking on e5, giving Russell the opportunity to take, taking on e6 with check. And I'm assuming that after that there's some sort of d3 stuff going on.
Yeah, I would have thought that.
The knight hangs and then perpetual check is definitely there. But wow, I mean, f takes e. Maybe he just didn't see the e6 pawn being so weak.
Oh, well, I mean, I'm not so sure that black doesn't have a case here. I mean, queen takes e6, we go to h7, right? Probably. And then if you play queen takes e5, and black plays c3. Actually, d3 might be a draw offer. Yeah? It might be an offer to take on c3 and black will take a perpetual. Which...
So for those want to see it, the perpetual's here and the king's going to go to h1.
Yeah, I think if black takes the knight, it's not so convincing. I think he would want to take a perpetual at that point. So that's one possible finish. I just think that if white defends f2, then black is quite active here.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
don't ever
I may
want
be wrong. Rook F1's possible because the knight still hangs, but I'm not sure.
Oh, they've agreed a draw in this position. Draw was offered.
Oh, wow.
Game has ended.
In the position after F takes E5?
Yeah, this position here.
I mean, my other thought from White's point, if you wanted to make a case for Russell's position here, my other thought was to go knight C4 and take it with the knight. Keeping
That's a really nice move.
Having blockading possibilities.
Yeah, that's great.
Put a knight at D3 eventually. That feels like the positional way to do it.
In fact, this is really difficult to put.
But Black may have D3 here, which would put a bit of a spanner in the works.
Actually, stopping D2 is actually really tough.
Yeah. Well, you can play rook E3 not to succumb to it immediately, I think. So you're going to take the knight if D2.
Yeah.
You've got to believe very strongly in this sort of positional advantage of the knight on E5, and
yeah.
I mean, I was thinking this was an idea for White, but I wasn't necessarily clear it was an idea to play for more than equality. So I don't think the draw agreement is ridiculous either.
Yeah, of course, yeah, and with the time as it is as well, I think.
Well, no, I mean that's always I've agreed draws in some horrifically good positions in my time when time trouble gets out of control.
We've also got a finish in Vickers versus Adrian, which we saw it around this area actually, and we kind of didn't stay too long on it because
after 93, I kind of thought White might have a tiny edge, but that's not to say I thought he
swaps and put his knight on F4 instead, and then
okay, so
they agreed to draw here.
That's probably reasonable because I mean, White's defending B3 fairly easily and is very reasonable. This is
so you just kind of got the White king trapped a little bit, but I assume too many checks would be.
But you can, I mean, the pawn ending's drawn, so you can go rook c3 check and rook c2 if you want to after king c1 or something.
Yeah, true.
I don't. So I assume the pawn endings are drawn. Of course, it's always a slightly dangerous assumption, but I mean, more to the point, why even do that? Why not just put your rook on f5 and say your king's not coming any closer, mate? King c1. I want king c1.
King c1. I was going to say, then we go rook here. Yeah, because now if the rook attacks this way, we just bring our king forward. That's a simple way of drawing it.
I think
fair results. Fair result completely. Paul versus Manuel. Whoa. This is the one where he lost h6 early on.
Yeah. And now it looks like he's doing very well. Oh, wait a minute. Black's a rook up.
Yeah, I was going to say. Hang on, what? Rook takes rook, bishop d1. Can't he just take that?
That can't be right, can it?
No. So we saw it around here. Queen hit f4. Rook d8.
Rook d8 is undoubtedly a better move than c4. Oh, wait a minute. I'm confused. Oh, but that's very nice. I think. Is it very nice?
So he wants to play rook d1 and then take on a2, or is he taking on a2 first?
That is very nice. That is very convincing.
So hang on. So how does this look? Queen takes knight.
Yeah, then rook d1 threatening queen a2, and that's about it, I think. Well, the problem is he's taking f1 anyway, so there's going to be
okay. So if he's taking back here, then doesn't matter, does it?
G5 for White. There is G5 for White to keep the game going. So maybe this is still a question.
Well, if you go b3, queen a3.
Yeah, queen b2.
And then swap and rook takes f1.
Yeah, I wasn't saying I was going to rush out and play this for
one. Okay.
just trying to. I mean, you played knight e2 to g3 to defend the rook. Then maybe you're.
Yeah.
Maybe you can play all the moves. It's not a barrel of laughs. That's for sure.
Well, nice bishop e2 move, and then c4 came. Knight h3, c3. Knight b3 takes.
Oh, this looks not like something you want to do.
It's not look good.
Oh wow. Oh, I see. So it's been a rook exchange on d1. I think it's a failure of the transmission. It must be rook takes d1 here, I think. So it's going to be tricky to look at. I think we can assume it will rook takes, bishop takes.
Bishop takes like this. So we might lost the transmission here for this game.
If we did, then it's not. So sometimes they get them back, though, don't they?
Queen d4. Okay, so maybe I think we're back on again.
We're back. That's good. Oh, that is a
is that game?
Which seems to just win immediately. Yeah.
Yeah, the knight, literally knight g1 has just been played, and then queen d4.
Oh gosh, that's. I'd like to think that's why I didn't see the fork, because the knight was still on h3. But I can't guarantee that, guys. It was just okay. Knight g1 is a blunder.
Yeah. Okay, that looks like that's going to end that game.
Yeah, by the way, knight d5 is a nice subsidiary threat here, as well as taking the two pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is
the pin.
Hopeless for
I guess he
white.
Tries g5, but he'll probably resign soon. It's easy to parry.
Well, we take.
No, actually, hang on a minute. If he plays king a2 here, he's taking two pieces in the air, so it's no good.
Well, this might actually be a moment where. No. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. King a2. Go on. Try king a2. It's true.
I guess you just take the bishop.
And takes. And then g5. You're taking those guys.
Well, queen b2 here actually keeps the game going, doesn't it?
Yes.
Maybe it's not as over after king a2 as what I thought it might be.
Well, is this a moment when knight d5 is relevant?
Knight d5 is the move, yeah.
Then knight e2. Then knight e2.
e2.
Annoyingly for black. That's a monstrosity if this holds.
I mean, what is giving that? Hang on, let's just check. King a2. There's not a cleaner win, right?
Probably, maybe, but
okay. So if I take the knight first, g5.
Okay, I'll take your knight.
Oh, hang on. No, are you taking?
No, I'll take your knight. I want to take your knight. Yeah.
Then I take the bishop. G5. Okay. Then I take here check.
Yeah.
Can I go when with queen?
Yeah, the win is just in the queen ending, actually, isn't it? Probably.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, I can take on f3
I'd
here.
be surprised if queen c3 check isn't the winning king pawn ending, but there are probably better ways of doing it.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, queen here, take this.
Well, taking on b3 is and taking on f6 is clearly very good, isn't it?
Yeah, that's really good for black.
Wow.
Well, he went king a2
what
and he
Black's
took
done
on
is he gave away his h6 pawn in the opening, and then he's made a beautiful illustration of why this weakened white start squares and has won a fantastic mathematic. I think there could have been a spanner in the works with e5 in the middle, but
it's, maybe
worked like a dream.
Yeah, well, great attack by Manuel. So and fair play. Okay, so Sam Parry versus Sarah Longston still looks like a lot of play left in this game. That was with the knight c5 idea and everything. Right. So we saw that actually, didn't we? The knight b8 was a really nice retreat.
Where I wanted to go knight a5. I think knight a5 would have been interesting. We weren't sure how
more aggressive here. Knight
I wanted
a5.
to take on d7 here, but I wasn't very happy. And he's opted for bishop e2, which is another, which you mentioned was also fairly balanced. I think, which is probably. I assumed he was going to put the knight on d3, but bishop d3 might actually be a better idea.
And this is the live position right now.
Okay. So white can go sort of a3 and f5 and try and play on the white squares, but I don't know how justified that is. It's just that's the first.
He started a3.
Did he?
Yeah, and so knight's retreated back immediately, but I mean, can he take on h7 here? g6, knight h4, knight e7. Doesn't feel like we're a million miles away.
Doesn't feel like we're a million miles away from Spassky Fischer, actually.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
We should have learned not to do that sort of thing by now. But yes, maybe.
Hang on, could you have done it here?
That is a much more interesting. I think that's a better. I was a bit unconvinced in the other case, but here, it's a really good question, isn't it? A really good question.
Is knight c2 a problem? No, it's not.
No, it's not a problem because that does look strong.
The d4 pawn is going, but you've taken 2 pawns, so
you've taken 2 pawns. You're happy, I think.
Yeah, I think maybe he could have nicked that h7 pawn
sure
there. But he's actually gone,
wow,
surprisingly, b4 here, which I'm...
Oh, I don't like that because that weakens him on the squares where black has a bishop and he doesn't. I wanted to play on the squares where we had 2 knights and the bishop and black only has a bishop and 1 knight. I think f5 must be the thematic move there unless it fails to something tactical. b4.
Yeah. You're coming into this.
Well, if you take, I get to take on d5. That looks healthy enough. Then I can look at moves like... Well, I can take d5, I think.
Oh, hang on. You've got 3 attackers there, haven't you? Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Taken d5, yeah. So takes...
Oh, I see you're doing that. I've got e6. Then.
Yeah, you've got too much, haven't you?
I'm not sure that will be fun. Yeah, now I've got my white squares and a pawn, probably. Knight d4 is a thought, but
I don't believe that it's working.
No, I don't believe it's working either.
Yeah, so this, I mean,
f5 just feels thematic to me. This feels like what you ought to be doing if you have, you don't have a dark square bishop, so you're trying to play on the light squares.
Yeah.
b4 feels like you're thinking more about what your opponent can do to you than what you can do to them.
Yeah, and maybe time's coming into it. It's down to 3 minutes. White Sam is.
Well, that is the moment when you quite often think about what your opponent can do.
Yeah, it's so easily done, though, isn't it? To focus on your opponent's attack rather than your own.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I also don't like the stability of this knight either, as well. And maybe Sarah might even at some point sack a piece or 2 pawns, perhaps. But okay, well, Ethan versus Dylan. Ethan Norris versus Dylan Mize. This was, when did we last see this game? What was the...
A long time ago. This is when we saw it with the queen on h5, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. We saw it around...
Black had achieved a few things, but nothing...
About here.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, I did talk about how this could, it looked visually quite nice for white, but I wasn't sure it was for black, sorry, but I wasn't sure how clear.
Yeah, he starts to get pushed back a little bit here. Yes. Black does, doesn't he? And white's pieces are starting to find good squares.
White's manoeuvring quite nicely at first glance, isn't he? Oh, that was a piece. Okay.
So that was a whole piece, but there's a load of craziness to come. What?
But part of the craziness is another piece, yeah.
And yeah, white's just 2 pieces up.
White is. Okay.
So I think that game's going to be... it's resigned in this position. White's won.
Yeah,
game's over. And we've also had a result in the board 11. How did we get to this? We saw this... Oh, yeah,
we liked
here, wasn't it?
Here as well.
Yeah.
Been on G4. Yeah.
And he did just take the pawn in the end.
Okay.
And then another pawn. Went into the queen ending, which is always risky. I wouldn't have been comfortable winning this.
Because they're just so hard, aren't they? I don't think there's anything harder than queen endings, actually, in chess.
No, he hasn't got queen check, though, at the moment, because queen f6 check would stop the queens, which is quite interesting.
Yes.
Oh, that forced the queens off. Really nice control, actually. Controls the check and square on b7.
Nice. Yeah.
Really nice. And
so what happens there if white plays king h2 after f6? I mean, I like his position a lot, black, but if white just plays king h2,
yeah, maybe.
What happens immediately?
I guess black has to keep coming forward.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of play left, I should imagine. Probably this is just a blunder, isn't it?
That is a blunder, but Black has, but nonetheless, Black has kept control nicely, as you said. So
yeah, for sure.
Kind of fancy his chances, but it's not. We just queen endings are another area of just so many full point swings where justice is clearly not done.
Well, this has definitely changed into Keith's favour.
Oh, well,
now it's routine.
Very grim indeed.
We saw it around this area here. Just to show you how we got here, Rook D5.
Yeah, I didn't like Rook C7. I felt that he had to be consistent and try and get the best possible version of that bishop ending, really, because the rook ending is very miserable.
Yeah, and Black's pawns start to move and motor, and White can't do anything.
Yeah, White's made a lot of progress and lost the move, but Black's made none.
Yeah, so this is just
Black's made the other way around.
Yeah, and he's
okay. This is kind of game over, I think.
Game over, isn't it? So Edward Jackson versus Adam Ashton. He's won an exchange now. Adam Ashton has played some quite nice chess. So
we saw where B5 was an important.
So
allowing B5 was an important mistake. We thought
he did inject some tactics, but takes, rook moves, and then he decided to take on A7 because he's losing a piece otherwise.
Well, it's actually quite a clever way of injecting some tactics in. I don't think it's enough, but it's kind of well motivated.
Yeah, I think he needed to, didn't he, at that point?
It's clearly not gone right. So there's Rook A1 now, but that's just met by Rook takes B2, I think.
Yeah. Because he's got the pawn for the exchange, but if he's got no more than that, then if he allows Rook takes B2, then game over, isn't it?
He has much choice because he's got a... Yeah. No, that's clearly gone bad. I think that Knight C4 moment was really important, and I hope... It would be interesting to check afterwards what the truth is about Bishop C4. But
just put the computer on and see what it says. It says Black's slightly better.
For a moment,
Bishop B8 is the favourite move. No, it just likes Bishop D3 here.
With what assessment?
Minus 0.5, so Black's slightly better.
Yeah, but I think is Bishop C4 the right way to keep it under control? Is that one?
Yeah, Knight C4 is a big blunder.
Yeah, no, I was pretty sure that Bishop on B3 is just so unhealthy. Then
definitely. Well, can Rishi beat Mike?
Anyway, nicely played by Adam, I think.
With his unusual opening. Can Rishi win this against Mike Surtees? And we've had some rooks exchanged. So we saw it at Queen G3. We only had a few moves played. Rook E8 takes, and then he's plumped for F5 immediately.
Okay. So I hope, and indeed suspect, that he's calculated that after Queen takes B2, something with Queen takes D6 check and Rook E1 is strong.
I mean, it looks strong. Is it maybe the F pawn's really strong?
If you can see anything going wrong for White here, it's the fact that the G4 pawn prevents him from finding a sort of problem-free way to make luft for the king because he can't play H3 or something.
Yeah.
And if he has to play G3, that creates some perpetual opportunities, that sort of thing. Beyond that, I can't see too many
Queen
problems,
takes B2 here is...
Well, I think it's what you almost have to try as Black, right?
Yeah, I mean... I don't know how White keeps control there, though, as well. I'm a bit sceptical.
Well, okay, Queen takes D6 check.
And just King G8, maybe?
Yeah, and then Rook E1, I think.
Bishop F7?
I would hope that Knight E4 then threatens kind of mating things.
Knight E4 is playable because the Queen's on B2, not B4, of course.
I'm glad you pointed out. That's the sort of thing I might blunder in time from.
Yeah, it's easily done.
B2, Queen D6 check, King G8, Rook E1.
Queen takes
I was also wondering if he takes the knight, that feels like the way to bring into play what I was talking about earlier with the difficulty of making luft. So I guess we go Rook takes C8 check and
King H7
and some move which guards the back rank. Yeah, now we need to sort of do something about our back rank. That feels like the key moment to me.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually go h3. Just about.
You can. When you take
It's
it,
probably not worthwhile. I think it gets taken, actually. Let's put it on the board.
Taken?
The h3 pawn. So check.
Yeah, check.
I'm assuming king here.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Rook e1, and then takes, check. And
this
you're
is
right.
the position I was worried about. This is the one where the fact that we can't play h3 bothers me a bit. I don't see a way to prevent all counterplay and mop up here. One thing that does occur to me is it might be super smart to play rook e1 before taking on d6 check, so that c3 is still guarded.
Yeah,
then,
but I saw
this could just be one of those threat is stronger than the execution moments, and now we have knight e4.
Yeah.
And this feels like it might give us a bit more control than the other line.
The bishop's terrible, isn't it?
That's certainly White's hope.
It's quite annoying that we can't take on d5 here.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's annoying, but it's also not massively surprising that we can't, because it's like these white pieces are attacking rather nicely. I think that's the way to do it. You keep control and don't take on. Avoid not taking pawns with check isn't incredibly easy to do always, of course. But it may well be that White has that all in mind, and rook e1 is his plan. That is our line that's on there. None of this has happened yet. Right?
This has not happened there. So Mike's still deciding at this moment, and maybe queen takes b2 is just so. I don't see what else Black plays here though. So I don't know what.
Yeah, but I guess you do have to check as Black that you're not actually sort of losing immediately by force with checks after that.
Yeah, but
I think.
What are his other options though? What else could he play?
No, that's a very good question. Black is not overrun with good options here. So let's say he does take on b2. After rook e1, is there any way to play at all? It does look very grim. Because, it threatens various... It might even threaten something like just f6 and rook f7 is not possible because of queen e3 or something. I mean, there's lots of ways to make progress.
Oh, yeah.
But queen d6 check is obviously the biggie.
I mean, maybe just queen d2 here, maybe, or is just queen d6 check is just so strong.
Yeah, but then we get to take the piece without losing our piece back, and some move like queen e5 at the end will cover the back rank and c3 enough to just be winning.
Does it though?
I think so. Take d6.
Oh, because of the rook being on it, isn't it? So
yeah, then we get to take with check. Well, no, I mean, if he goes king f7, we can actually take with queen e7 and just take with the queen and leave the rook on e1.
Yeah, true.
But if he goes king g8, let's say we take with the rook, and if nothing else, we have queen e5 in this position, which covers everything.
Yeah.
Queen covers the horse, covers the mate, covers everything.
Yeah, there might even be more than that as well.
So having played so well, I kind of hope that Rishi will keep control in the nice way he's kept control up to now. How's the clock?
Mike's down to under 5 minutes now. Mike is. Rishi's got 13.5 minutes.
Well, most importantly, they're only on move 23, so it's time trouble, isn't it?
I mean, it's been a crazy game, hasn't it? But I guess Mike's opening skirmishes early on have kind of.
Well, I think Mike's position was so bad that he can kind of think, okay, I'll spend time trying to find the right way to defend this because, if I lose on time, I'm not losing that much.
Yeah.
Whereas you just have to defend as best you can. And Rishi's kept, a bit more time, but even I would regard this as time trouble for both.
Yeah, I don't even see what Mike does here. That's the problem, I think. No. Maybe king e7, is that even a move?
If that's his best, It's a very
F6
sad
check.
moment. Rook E1 to E6 must be. Oh, then there's maybe B4. I mean, F6 check would be one very good way, I would imagine.
Yeah, it looks hopeless to me.
Yeah.
I just checked back on Edward Jackson versus Adam Ashton. Oh, he's allowed the capture on B2 and C3 has been played. I guess so long as Adam doesn't fall for some back rank tactics here.
I think Adam's rather a good player. I would be very surprised to see him fall for any back.
It's the only game that's really in kind of like a bit of a flux is this game here, Sam Parry versus Sarah Longson.
It looked like Sarah's made fairly dramatic progress. We really didn't like
we saw this after B4, didn't we? Which we didn't like.
Yeah, your idea of grabbing the H pawn immediately was very interesting.
Yeah.
One thing we didn't talk about is black playing F5 then, which opens up a lot of squares for white, but the bishop's sort of out how to play long term. But I think it was clearly better than what white did. Now the centre's collapsed a bit.
And this is the live position here.
This is just the kind of position where the two bishops really come into their own because white doesn't have kind of counterplay. Oh, nice. Okay. So she's sort of denying the rook the possibility of becoming slightly more active by taking on B3. So. And I guess now the rook's the target for pushing the D pawn and that sort of thing.
Well, bishop takes A3 as the threat, I think.
Yeah, rook A8 and knight takes A5 is not a bad threat either.
Yeah.
Just white's position's kind of fallen apart in a few moves.
Yeah, and
I really think had he taken on H7 or played F5 that it was still very, very tense and he had a fair share of the chances. But
it's brought on, isn't it, by being just a little bit too defensive. Needs to be a bit more aggressive, and then also time trouble as well. He's under a minute now. 10-second increment here, not 30. So
actually, Sarah's controlled the clock pretty well, hasn't she? So I think it's just extremely unpleasant. Well, so board. Let's pop back to Mike and just see if Rishi finds his rook E1 move. Because, he's
gone rook D7.
Okay. You know, I think if I was playing an inexperienced player, I might have just gone queen takes B2 just to give them the opportunity to play the queen D6 line.
Yeah.
But now it feels like after something like, I don't know, we didn't think about rook D7. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised whether that's the computer's choice. It sort of has a feeling of the least bad option about it. But.
So I guess the reason why I didn't consider this was because when you take on B2, you can just take on G4, but
the knight probably needs to be defended as well. I mean, it still feels to me like rook E1's probably the right move here and then after takes B2, find some queen E3 or something which hits the bishop and H6. But yeah, that must be the way. Just queen E3. And then when the bishop moves, you go queen takes H6 and knight E4, and that just looks like.
Or even F6.
Or even F6. Let's just see. So rook E1, queen B2. And then I want to attack E8 and H6, so queen E3. Bishop has to move, I think. Yeah, and then queen H6. Actually, the best way to do this might be to go knight E4, and then after rook E7, which is sort of the last trap with a back ranker on, then go F6, and then black really can resign.
So hang on, why does F6 not win straight away? Because of bishop moving somewhere?
Well, it probably does, but I move the bishop, and maybe I live to fight another moment. But knight E4 is just completely over, isn't it? Because like knight F6 is a huge threat, and after rook E7, then F6 wins instantly. So.
Like this.
Like this.
Checkmate here.
That does feel pretty efficient. I mean,
it does,
you're right that F6 also wins completely.
It's all crashing down around Mike's king here.
All he needs is to follow, Jakob Ogard's one, invite all the pieces to the party thing, and rook E1 is inviting the last piece to the party, and it seems to do the trick.
The only one of White's pieces gets to move.
Given the quality of his play so far, I very much suspect and hope he will find rook E1. I think he deserves this one.
Yeah. I mean, it feels like such a natural move, doesn't it? It must be the first consideration. So
You would think. Well, the only thing is if you think that the rook had been defending crucial things and you get greedy about trying to. But rook e1 must be the move. And he's got enough minutes to think about it. He's actually used up 3 minutes in the last.
yeah, I'm a bit surprised because I can't see many other candidate moves for white here. Unless you're looking at something like Queen e3, maybe.
On the other hand, he may have the view that if he gets this bit right, maybe after rook e1, there's Queen d4 to think about.
Yeah, I've just seen that actually. I was looking at this actual
Relocate.
retreat back this way actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, Queen d4 might not be as.
That is a bit more serious.
So does he need to?
Which could mean that going Queen e3 first is actually the right way to do it. Because then, if Queen b2, we just transpose with rook e1, and that might be a very accurate move.
Do you know what the funny thing here is, though? It doesn't rook h7 defend the pawn.
I certainly feel we're in eating hat territory here if it does. Rook e1?
Well, okay, so bishop d7.
Okay, and my hat's feeling vulnerable now. Maybe
you want it back to g3 to hit d6, maybe?
I'm in time trouble. I don't want to undefend my rook. I'll go knight e4.
Yeah, knight e4. Yeah, okay. So this is, yeah, it must be good for white.
Well, it's all good, but I think you've made it. I mean, the idea of Queen d4 and then rook h7 passive, though it looks, may well be the best way to defend.
Yeah. He's played Queen e3 actually. This is
what a
live
good
on the board.
I'm very impressed by him today.
Yeah, very
really
accurate.
seen much of him before. But this guy's 12 and he's got control and accuracy in this game. You know, Mike Surtees is a good player. This is a serious scalp for her. Yeah, I like it. Good lad. Okay, so he was more aware of Queen d4 than we were. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, we're coming to the board just kind of like fresh sometimes.
No, I wasn't. It's the last thing I'd want to do to be too hard on us, Jonathan. But it's. But I do think it's a nice. Queen e3 is a nice level of accuracy. I like that.
I think rook h7 is going to get played here. I can't see any other move making sense.
No, I'm going to take a bet on that.
or maybe Queen d4, allow the h6 pawn to go, and then go Queen g7, and just.
I think something like that is more likely, actually. Or even just go King g8 and grit your teeth and go King g8 after Queen d4.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. Who knows? He might threaten your rook h7 at the end, albeit without an h pawn. It's a rather different rook h7 without an h pawn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, objectively, obviously, this is terrible, but.
I mean, Mike's going to have to play pretty quickly here. He's down to under a minute now, so.
Yeah.
This is the game to watch.
Honestly, I think if I had less than a minute, I would probably play Queen d4 almost without. Really looking.
It's interesting sometimes when you have such easy decisions to make that how you use time during those decision-making processes. And,
yes, indeed.
You know, you need to manage the clock quite well. It's actually an art, isn't it, for some people, managing the clock?
Those words just burn in my ears.
So I've done the same and do the same regularly. But I think mine's due to not knowing my openings very well beforehand.
Actually, some of mine's due to that these days as well.
We've got some more moves. I don't know how we've got these moves. They just weren't showing up.
Oh, Queen b2, that's brave. Well, I think rook e1 is... I thought this was game over, actually, and probably still do think that.
Yeah, so Queen b2 is definitely not... Because we had that mate up before, didn't we, after rook e1? And he's played it.
I mean, there's a sense in which the move order Mike's played here has kind of forced his opponent to play the best line, which is always a part. I mean, if he could... Oh, wait, one thought we haven't thought of here. We're sort of assuming that the bishop has to move, but King g7 might... Oh, okay. Enough of that. This is the line we looked at, and we thought that Queen h6 and knight e4 or f6 are both game over.
Yeah. Well, I think king g7, just queen takes bishop, and you can take the knight. I'll just take the rook with check.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
So that wasn't going to work. So here we think queen h6
The
check.
sad thing is that might not be worse
e4.
than this.
Knight e4 here for game.
Honestly, f6. Your f6 is also very good. It is. White's played this really accurately. I think I'm very impressed. Of course,
F6,
it's easier.
bishop h5.
It's not that hard to play with such a great position, but I'm kind of still.
F6, bishop h5 keeps the game going.
Well,
oh, it does it.
You can take
straight for f6.
There's a sense in which the game is not still going.
Yeah. Okay. Rook e8 makes.
Okay, I slightly preferred knight e4 because I thought it was really
yeah.
nice that rook e7 just locked, then f6.
We'll mark Rishi down for style points here, shall we?
No, I wouldn't go that far. I think he's done all right. And actually, bishop h5 is completely game over. Yeah, I think Mike will resign here.
Yeah.
And I'm
played
not.
it.
Okay.
So you just take that bishop, can't you, and rook e8 mate.
Yep.
Guess we're just waiting for him to take it. Unless he's thinking of queen g5 check here.
Yeah, I rather hope he's not thinking of anything else. I mean, you see rook e8 mate, and you don't need to think about anything else, do you?
And then I think we're Bob on calling it a day for this round, actually, after this, just to see this end.
Maybe a final check-in on Adam. Just
yeah, we'll check in on the other games still going, I think. Yeah,
there we go. He's taken it. And
resigns, I assume.
Yeah.
Or allow checkmate on the board. Right, we'll count that as a win for Rishi. Well played, fantastic game.
Yeah, well played indeed, really good.
Yeah. So yeah, just checking on Edward Jackson versus Adam Ashton, and still some technical work to do for Adam, but I think this is.
Well, the main problem is that there are many main problems. One main problem is that as soon as White's rook leaves the back rank, his own king has back rank issues. Right? After something like rook cb8 or something is then.
Yeah.
But okay, I think going and making a pass d pawn quickly is probably the right way to attempt to make time trouble confusion. You know, I mean, there's no sort of clean way to try and defend as such, but you can try to confuse. And it seems like a reasonable way to try and do that.
But we're definitely expecting Adam to break through here. So Rishi's going to be on 3.5. We think Adam will win this to be on 3.5. Keith Farkle's on 3.5. Bogdan Lalit will be on 3.5. There's 1, 2, 3. So 4 players will be on 3.5 points.
Yep.
So they'll all hopefully play each other in the last round, which will be a bit of a nail biter.
Indeed, yeah, that's quite
as well, which will be fantastic. And just to check in, is Sarah winning this one? I mean, she could take on a.
Is, but I don't love the way it's changed since we last saw it. It's sort of there is now, if she takes on a5, there's a possibility of a rook c7 invasion, and White can finally grab that h7 pawn. I mean, Black still should be winning, but I don't think it's.
Yeah, it's not as easy, is it?
I don't know. Is it fractionally more complicated than it was? Only fractionally, perhaps.
How many pawns is it? It's like 1 pawn at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, in the line I mentioned, if she takes on a5 and White comes to c7, king e7, bishop h7, just put the king on d6, and the b pawn is actually very dangerous. So
yeah,
I think Black still should be winning.
So Sarah should win that one, shouldn't she?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other complications. That's good.
Great. Well, I'll leave this game on just on the stream just for the next 5-10 minutes until it finalizes. But I think this should be rook c7 is an interesting move. Don't understand that rook c7. Or is he going to take on e6 or something? What? Why is he on rook c7?
I guess that maybe does he want to play King E7 without allowing a Rook A7 check or something?
I don't know that.
Yeah, just look.
There's a sneaky little trap here, though, right? So even if White takes on D4, has he got Rook A7?
I think he does, but the most natural move here is King E7, in which case White could at least change rooks with Rook D7 check after that. But then, yeah, I guess that he can deal with the threat to H5 and then take D7 at his leisure, possibly. I don't know. I mean, I think that it should be fine for Adam, but it doesn't look like the most obvious way to have played it. But...
No. So just skirting.
Oh, he's gone D3. If he's got a D, I was just going to say, if he's got a D3 breakthrough, now C2, that probably is a good way of. Oh, then Rook C4.
Rook A1. Oh, Rook C4.
Yeah, Rook C4 could be a real problem.
Yeah. I feel like he's just definitely gone wrong here, hasn't it? Feels like it.
I'm not sure. Oh, now it does feel like it's definitely gone a bit funny after Rook C4. I was just wondering if he could play Rook F2 there, threatening C2, and that actually looked pretty strong. With the idea that then Rook C4 could be met by Rook A7. I'm not sure if that's true, but it was a thought.
Yeah, this has gone really bad. Rook C4. If Rook takes Rook,
really, am I missing some trick here?
I don't think so. I think Rook C4 is just really strong.
Oh dear. Okay. I hate to say it, but the game Adam drew a couple of rounds ago, my impression was he drew that by kind of rushing a pawn break as well.
Yeah, he was doing really well, actually.
He was doing really well, and then he sort of rushed a pawn break, and I thought, I wonder if he's slightly rushed a pawn break again.
Maybe a bit weary from his game from last night as well. That went on to the distance, and he just about won it.
Well, I think it's always difficult to play when you're he's here with Alana, so you're as a parent, you're always dividing your attentions between your own chess and your child's chess. Also, doesn't make it any easier, I don't think.
No.
Since my children don't play, I don't have that particular problem. But I wouldn't want to have that on top of all the things I do have.
This is looking really scary, actually.
Well, yeah, just to clarify, definitely scary only to the extent of a draw.
Yeah, he's not going to lose, but I mean,
no. I mean, I think it's a long way from being drawn yet, but it does feel like.
You just nab off H5 here?
Well,
kind of want your bishop on D5, don't you?
Well, if you nab on. But if you nab on H5, I guess I could play King E7, and then you have to think about. I don't know. I was also looking at some things where you go Rook A1 check and then Rook A2 check to take on G2, which might, if you take on H5, that might be a moment to do that. I was assuming I win the H pawn as well, but maybe I don't.
No, I can play H3.
You can play H3 and Bishop G4. That's right.
Oh no, hang on. Depends where you check me after Rook A2, though, doesn't it? Where my king goes. If I go King D3,
you might have to go back to the back rank, which
I don't really want to do.
Yeah, but I don't know.
I think if I was white here, I'd probably take that pawn on H5 anyway.
Well, I think that might very well be sensible just to.
And then I'm just going to park the bishop on F3, play C5, C6, and H3.
Yeah. No, this has become a bit tense for.
Yeah, very, very tense.
And of course, both players. Okay, it's moved 38, so time won't be a huge factor. They both only have a minute and a bit, but.
Do you know what time the next round starts, Peter?
I gather it's 3 and we're on at 3:30.
No. The next round starts at 2:30.
Oh, sorry. No, I do know that because I tweeted 3:00 yesterday because I
Yeah.
had half an hour to the round time. So yes, I do know that. But
So
there may be. It may be that. Do the players have a right to ask for a particular gap before the round? Like these guys
if
who are
it's a
still
FIDE
playing.
rated game, then yes, they do. I think they're allowed an hour's gap if they want it.
Right.
So I'm wondering if some of these players might want just a bit of an extra break. I mean, especially if Adam goes on to win this and he'll be joint leader of the tournament, then he'll definitely want it. If they draw, then maybe not. It might be worth just checking that out, and maybe we'll come back maybe a little bit later, perhaps. I mean, if he takes on these 6 here and he gets C5,
Well, but
C6
even if they delay the start, the other games will start at the normal time. So
yeah, most of them will.
Yeah. So I would have probably thought we stick to plan and come back at 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come back at 3:00. Yeah.
As long as you don't need a longer break.
No, I don't. No.
I mean, these guys are only playing. We're doing commentary. That's much harder.
Yeah, it's really hard. I'd say, well, shall we leave this one here? Just let it play on and come back to the result and kind of recap it when we come back at 3:00.
Can I ask one question before we do that? Do we understand why he didn't go Bishop G4 to try and keep the E6 pawn? I think I have the answer already. I think Black probably plays Rook A4 and White can't take on C2 because of the fork. But I'm not sure.
I don't think the bishop's good here.
Yeah, and then I wondered if we can go Bishop E2 just to try and take on C2 for free.
Yeah, but I just don't think he needs to do this. I think what he's done is right.
You think what he's done is fine? Okay.
This pawn's here. This pawn's here. What does Black do? You can't even bring your king close because C7 queen's the pawn.
Well, no, it's annoying that if I try and put my king on C3, a queen would check or something. If I tried to mate you with king C3, C8, queens with check. That's actually.
This is going to be a draw. This is.
Wow. Okay, so he's been sensible.
Because you can't get the
how
king
does Black
to come...
make any progress at all?
Maybe Rook A5, Rook C5.
Oh yeah, I think I even saw that in my head and then forgot I'd seen it. But he hasn't done that. Feels like that could have been his last chance.
Yeah, that could have been it.
Now C6. What's
C6, and you could C6. You've got to play King D6.
That is true, I think.
There's also a danger here. Oh, he's gone C6, King D6. For some reason, he's gone Bishop E4. I don't think it's needed, but
no, I don't think it is either. I don't think it's needed.
Assuming he can just go King D2, King C1 with no kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's down to 10 seconds as well.
I mean, it's probably true that if he takes on C2 and puts the bishop back on F3 and moves the king over to the king side, that's also some kind of blockade, isn't it? So,
yeah.
I don't think he has to do that, but he certainly can do that. But I think they've also just kind of discovered that. I think White's also reached the conclusion that doing nothing will be fine. Oh, he's doing nothing with Bishop E4. Fair enough. There are different ways of doing nothing, of course.
Yeah, I thought King D2, King C1 was safer personally, but
no, I think so too because the bishop's loose and Black could try some. I don't know. No, maybe you can. It's because we're used to not leaving our pieces on undefended squares.
Yeah, whereas here we're worried about Rook A4 or something. Oh, he's played Rook A4.
Yeah,
because now he's got to move his bishop and king to the king side to defend.
Yeah,
that in game.
Right
after the C pawn goes.
Well, I suppose after bishop takes C2, he can actually play Rook D4 now, trying to stop the king going to the queen.
Well, that's an interesting move.
Well, it's certainly something. Oh, okay. It was an interesting move. It's something that White probably didn't have to allow, I think.
Yeah, so King D2 here, and
yeah, I would have gone Rook D4. Oh, I hope I would have had the presence of mind to go Rook D4 there and at least try a little bit, or even Rook F4 also discourages King D2. But King e3. It does feel like it should be.
Because they're playing so fast, actually, we can wait, can't we?
Well, yeah, no, indeed. Okay, now I think he probably
could get mated here.
Would he be wise to go g3 check here? I think that would be.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's got to go g3 check.
Well, it also enables him to go h4, which, you know, black may then take and go king f4 and try and win with rook against bishop, but we know it's a theoretical draw.
Yeah, because g3 and then king f5, bishop g4 check, and then h4, get those pawns off, and then that's it.
Oh, sorry, I was assuming the king went to e5. You're quite right. If it goes to f5, we obviously need to go bishop g4 check first. Yeah.
But I mean, this is how hard you have to press sometimes to try.
Well, yeah, but I think. Okay. Oh, he's gone to e5. I think if he'd gone to f5 and made the bishop go on g4, the fact that after h4 takes king f4, he could have still, maybe with rook c2 check, he could have tried to get a position where it's still possible for white to go wrong.
Yeah.
But now,
I think it's whether Edward tries to h4 now or whether. Yeah.
Oh, bishop g2. I didn't expect him to go that way. I thought he was going to go to.
I guess the white king can just go f3 to f2, can't it? And
well, it's also true that white doesn't need to play h4 at all. Just keep the dark squares under control, I guess, and let the bishop do the job on the white squares. Okay, so now, if he wants to go h4, now is probably the optimal moment.
Do you want to know what the football score was?
Possibly. I was assuming it was 1-0, but I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, it finished 1-0 as well.
Oh dear. Okay.
So we missed.
I mean, during the gap, I saw, it was already into the 80-something minute, and it was still 1-0. That's very sad. Yeah.
So what was after rook a6 here? I feel like Adam's making some progress here. Separated the bishop and king. Yeah, probably not enough to win, but
I'm not sure why Edward felt the need to go to e6.
It's a really nice little check on f3 there, forcing the king in. So now you can't block on e2 with the bishop.
Yeah, that's right.
And the king's in the wrong corner as well, isn't it? For drawing.
Yes. Okay, so he's gone h4, but it's not as good as the h4s he could have had just now, although
gives his king that h3 square, which is key.
Okay. Yeah. That's true.
King f4 here.
Yeah. Sorry, I should know this, and I assume it to be true, but this is increment all the way down now, yeah?
Yeah, no 10 seconds extra, yeah. No extra time.
Oh, that's an odd square. I don't like that square. I mean, I understand what he's doing. He's trying to push h5, but can that be the right way to do it?
King g4 here, just kind of... Yes, king g4, the best way to... Oh, king f2 does not draw due to rook f3
well, there's check. Also rook c2 check, right? Where is he going?
King h3, though, I wasn't too pleased about.
Sorry. Obviously need the break you were trying to offer me a few minutes ago.
Yeah, of course, yeah. The king g4, h5.
No, that's the move then. Yeah.
I was going to check here.
There's another of these checks, which might be Okay.
It's rook h3 now, maybe. At least drives the white king to the back rank, but if Edward knows, then he'll play something like king e1, king d1, king c1, and
He's stopping any of that. Feels odd to go to. It feels slightly odd to go to a square where you don't have a check. But
h5 now then.
I would have gone to b7 or something. Why can't I go to h5 now?
Yeah, he had a chance if he went to b7, but he should still be drawn. But I think they've agreed a draw here.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, it's drawn.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Well, another.
Wow.
That's a very impressive save from White, because the opening was really after when he allowed b5 and c4. I thought he was just going to lose, and then.
Yeah, I thought it was just lost. Well, I mean, the endgame was lost, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was lost. I mean, Adam obviously sort of pushed his break
missed
too
something.
far.
I've done it myself plenty of times. It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
So we're going to have Bogdan, Keith, and Rishi on 3.5 out of 4 points. I don't actually know who gets to play who. I'm assuming Rishi will play one of them, and the other will have a down float to somebody. Maybe Adam. Maybe Paul Macklin if he won.
Sorry, there's Keith in. Sorry, what were we saying? Bogdan and Keith against.
So Bogdan, Keith, and Rishi were all on 3.5.
Right. Okay.
So pairings there will be very interesting to see.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll end the stream here, and we'll come back in an hour's time. We'll back on the ECF streaming channel. Yeah, we've got an hour for lunch, but some of these competitors will be starting again in half an hour. Not much of a rest for these two unless they start a little bit later. But yeah, we'll thanks very much for watching, and yeah, we'll see you in an hour's time.
Yeah,
all right.
Thank you. Yeah.